Yeah,
Mic
I've
check,
seen one
1,
because I
2,
know him.
3, 4.
Yeah,
Mic
I've
check,
seen one
1,
because I know
2,
him.
3, 4.
All right, you're live. Okay. Well, welcome to the meeting of the Kennebunkport Planning Board. This is our first hybrid meeting with Zoom and in person. So we have a quorum here. So we have Larry Simmons, me, Tom Boak, we have Ed Francis and Nina Perlmutter are here. I know that two members are not here. They both quite a while ago asked me, told me they couldn't make it, so they're not here. But we have 4 people. 3 is a quorum, so we're in good shape. And I guess that's the attendance, pretty much. So let's look at the minutes. Did everybody get a copy of the minutes?
Yep.
Yes,
So,
I thought they looked good, Tom.
okay, want to make a motion
Yeah,
then,
I
Ed?
would move to accept the minutes as written.
I'll second that.
Okay, could we, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yep.
I don't think we have to do the individual naming like we do on Zoom, so. All right. That brings us to the first item, which is item 220301. Brian Glazer and Michael Spinard, Brian Bodett, authorized agent. This is a continued initial review because we had a Zoom mess up last time, and we apologize for that, but you guys got in just at the end after it was over. So we are happy to look at, I guess we'll hear your presentation for starters. Please introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name is Brian Bodette. I'm an architect in Kennebunk, and I'm working with, like you mentioned, Michael Spenard and Brian Glazer. They have a house currently on 35 Langsford Road in Cape Porpoise, and they are proposing to demolish the existing house and building a new house, and that's what I'd like to talk to you about today.
Okay. Why don't
Okay.
you proceed with your presentation, please?
Yeah. Oh, you want me to go through the, okay.
Sure.
So I'm gonna share my screen. Okay. So this is the proposed house. I'll just walk you through it in 3D just because it's easier just to get started. So this is the view from Langsford Road right here. This is coming from the town of Cape Porpoise. This is the opposite side here. And then this is the back of the house. So it's a 3-bedroom home. And we have the existing house, and I have the existing area and the existing volume. We're allowed to increase by 30% of each, and I'll go over those numbers with you. And let me go ahead and switch over to the site survey. Whoa, I don't know what's happening, but
It's exciting.
all right.
There we go.
Okay, let me get to the site survey. There we go. So the existing house, you can see it's in the lighter lines, the sort
Brian, we're
of
not-
ghosted
we're not
lines. Can
seeing
you
it
see
here.
it? Oh, no, it's catching up.
Yeah.
Hmm.
There's a tax card.
Let me see if it's gonna, I'm looking at, there it is. Yeah, it just has a little bit of a lag time, I think. So, yep, so you can see here the proposed house footprint is the darker line. I don't know if you can see my mouse. Oh, it's flying around, so I'm not gonna really be able to point to it, I don't think. Can you see the arrow?
Yeah,
My arrow? Okay, so this is the existing, I mean, this is the proposed footprint right here. And there is an existing shed building over here. And
I'm
the
not
existing,
following over here.
yeah, it's behind, see where it's hatched right here?
in the back.
In the upper right part of the property?
Yep.
I don't know if you
Yeah.
can see my arrow.
No, the arrow is down in the menu right now. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I think there's a lag. Is that my arrow, or is that somebody else's arrow?
I don't know.
You know what, Brian, I'll go ahead and just pull up
Yeah,
what I've got here.
okay. Okay. While he's getting that, so there was a previous design for this property, and it was approved by the planning board a couple of years ago, July 6th of 2020. And what I was hoping to do, and I think what the planning board asked me to do from the last meeting, was to compare the, the findings from that acceptance of the design versus this one that I'm offering today, and that's what I've come prepared to do.
Okay.
Yeah, looking, not just at the findings, but what, in the plan that was approved, what's changed now?
The plan itself?
Yeah, well, you can work from the findings, but,
Yep.
you
You
know,
want me to
is
show you?
this essentially the same design, or is
No,
it
no, no, the
radically
the
different?
footprint is completely different. Yeah, this one's a much more compact footprint,
I see,
and the design itself is more historic in design.
okay.
The new design is more historic.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, the new design, the one I'm offering now is more historic in its design elements than the previous one, yes.
Okay.
So I don't know, Warner, can I start sharing again, or?
Yeah, it's not, I'm running into some difficulties here. It's not
Okay.
coming
I
up.
probably won't
but-
need to point to too much more. So why don't I go ahead and I'll stop this sharing. I'm going to open up some of the other ones that I have.
Why
So
was
this
the
is-
design changed?
Why? They wanted a more historic design. The other one wasn't quite what they were looking for. Yeah. So this is their existing right now. So it's all been pulled apart, and the area calculations have been calculated. The volume, existing volume, has been calculated, and then the proposed. Let's see if I can get that on here. So this is the proposed, and the area, again, for this one has been calculated for the new as well as the volume. That's what all these pieces are, the colored pieces down below. And the new design falls within, it does not exceed the 30% allowed increase for both area and volume. And I can go over what the differences are from the one that you previously accepted 2 years ago.
Could you start by,
And here's the,
Brian,
what's that?
Could-
Oops, I'm hearing an echo.
could you start by helping us understand where the,
What's that?
could you help? Dave, are you hearing this?
I'm on mute. I
Yep,
should be
that's me.
anyways. Yeah, it says I'm muted.
All right.
I was hoping you could help us understand where the shoreland zone and where the resource protection zones are on this plan. I couldn't pick that up from the materials that came in the mail.
Sure, yeah, let me go over that with you.
Thank you.
Okay. So the entire property, so this is actually the 75-foot setback. Can you see the green line?
Yeah.
Okay, so that is the line. That's the resource protection line. So the entire property where the house is, except where the driveway is shown, is in the resource protection. And that's why we're allowed to do the 30% increase in area and volume.
You're saying it's entirely, the whole lot is in the shoreland zone?
Almost.
And-
Just the bottom right corner where the two cars and the driveway are shown. I don't know if you can see that green line.
No, you said that that was RP, was everything to the left of that line?
Yes.
Are you
Well-
saying that the entire lot is shoreland?
No,
No.
so just to clarify, the whole lot is in the 250-foot shoreland zone.
Thank you.
Okay? And what you're seeing on the green line there is the 75-foot setback within the shoreland zone.
Right. Is there any RP?
There is
this
RP
property?
on the property, but it's to the very rear of the property and
All right.
doesn't affect any of the buildings. So that's all to the rear.
At the edge of the
Right, and it's.
the high water mark?
Yeah, there's, I'll just point up here. Right, along this backside and here is where the RP
All right.
is located.
So the entire property is shoreland, and the 75-foot setback from the high water mark is marked there in green?
That's correct, encompasses the entire house. Or most of it anyways. There's a slight little chunk that isn't, but for all practical
Thanks.
purposes, in its entirety.
Because as we look at it, that's kind of the first
Right.
critical parameter. That's why we're looking at it.
Right.
In the application, since we're looking at this, you talk about removing the existing house and cottage. But the tax card shows there's just an existing house. Can you help me understand what
Yeah.
else you're talking about replacing?
Yeah, Warner, do you mind pointing that out too? There's a hatched square in the upper right part of the property. And that's an existing cottage right there.
In this back area here.
Well, yeah, it's that hatched box.
So when you look at the tax card, so it may not it doesn't necessarily show up as a separate footprint building, but where it would show up. It would show up, there's typically, there'll be another outbuilding, so there's if you look at the back of the tax card, there's what's called a cabin minimal, is identified on there, and so it's not a separate, doesn't have its own separate card, but the square footage of that building is allocated in that, what's identified on the card as cabin minimal.
So it's part of the entire footprint then?
Correct, yes. Yep, so yeah, it's a separate outbuilding in the back there.
Yep.
But,
I'm looking for the square footage of that building. Not on the tax card then, or?
so you have 468,
Square feet.
and then there's some additional deck square footage.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, on this survey, there's that chart under lot coverage calculations on the upper left. It talks about the existing lot coverage and then the proposed lot coverage.
So Werner, when I look at this card, and I see at the bottom that the total gross living lease area is 1244. That includes the 468?
No.
Does not?
No, so that's, that's just that's a separate building. So what you're looking at, when you're looking at the tax card,
Yep.
that's gonna give you that breakout, where you see codes like BAS, UBM. That is only identifying square footage related to, the house itself, so the main house.
The reason I'm harping on this is that when I read the plans that came in the mail, it says that the existing square footage is 2277 square feet. And that struck me as quite high for a two-bedroom, one-bath house. And then I look at the property card and it says 1244.
No, it says 1976. Gross.
Oh.
Because there are a lot of zeros in this.
The living area, though.
Well, the living area, so.
That's what we're talking about expanding,
Right,
right?
so I would, I'd refer you to the as-built that, Brian has put together, because the tax card is gonna give you just a gross measurement of the exterior of the building. In addition to that, there are formulas that automatically get applied based on, if you have like a 3/4 story, that get applied to a square footage that isn't necessarily as accurate as what you're gonna get with an architectural
Right.
as-built.
Remember we had that problem?
So where did I get this existing square footage? That's in the application, isn't it?
Yeah, so that's somewhat close to the 19
Yeah,
down
it's
there, plus the
listed.
400 up there.
Maybe. Again, I guess I'm struck at, that we're replacing a two-bedroom, one-bath home. It's a very modest home.
Right.
And yet, it says it's almost 2,300 square feet of living space. And so, when we look at the 30% expansion, it seems like we ought to be confident that.
I'm having a hard time.
Yep.
getting-
Am I-
I'm getting
am I-
the echo again?
Am I wrong that, we get the echo again?
Yeah, I'm getting the echo again.
Is your computer muted?
Yeah, it's still muted. It clicked on.
Somebody's is not muted.
I don't have one.
Are we all muted? No.
We are not muted on that laptop, because that's what gives it the audio. They weren't getting any audio on Zoom.
Oh, I see.
You can send them the audio, yeah.
Okay. Are we getting it on the?
How about now? Yep, yeah, we're still getting it coming across.
Okay, try talking now.
All right, any better?
No.
No.
So am I coming through the house speakers?
It says,
Yeah, you can
Oh.
bring,
What did you
right,
do?
Bring the house speakers down.
oh, okay, even though it said muted here.
Yeah. What about now?
Oh, okay. Yep, no, it's good.
We're good?
Yep.
Great. We're good.
So what I've got on the screen right now shows the proposed first floor living area and the second floor living area. And the same thing was done for the existing. Let me go back to that. Whoops. Existing right here. So that's the area, no, that's the, let me go to the, I might have closed it. I clicked on an X by accident. I think I closed it. Let me get back to it. So that's area faces. Yeah, let me open that again. There we go. Oh, here we go. It was there. So this one shows the existing area of the house that's there now. And you can see there's 2 floors.
They're living on the second floor?
What's that?
There's living space
yeah,
on the
there's living
second
space
floor.
on the second
Maybe
floor.
that's what I didn't appreciate.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, yeah. Yeah, I don't know if you can see there's red and green on the second floor, which is right here, and then you've got the first floor, the rest of it.
And the red and green, remind me, what does that designate?
Yep, the red and green, they have some bedrooms and hallway spaces up there.
The red means something different than the green?
Oh, it just so it's easier to read, so the surface area, here, let me zoom in, I don't know if you can see that. So the top floor, the second floor, the red, you know, you have to graphically calculate this so that it's easy to understand. So the house has to be kind of torn apart in order to do the areas and the volume. So
Understood.
this right here is 10 foot 10 in this direction, and then this is 19 foot 4.5 on the second floor. And the first floor, it's 15 foot 4 and 19 foot and a half.
But there's only 2 bedrooms in the house.
Yeah, but they've got a lot of like open loft areas and hallways and things like that.
But it is finished space.
It's not a very efficient layout. Yeah.
But it is finished.
Oh, yeah, it's
living
fully
space.
finished, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I had a question.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at the finding of facts from the last time,
Yep,
item 17 discusses
yep.
concrete piers for the first floor, 2¼ feet above base flood
Yeah,
elevation.
we didn't have to do that this time. Leon Blood is the surveyor,
Yes,
and we're high enough in the flood zone that we can just do flow vents. So we're not doing any, any kind of, well, this is for when the FEMA maps change, actually. We're like, right now, we can just get away with just doing the foundation and we're putting in the flow vents for when the FEMA maps do change. So we actually designed it for the future FEMA maps.
okay. But
Yeah.
you don't need that item 17 is no longer
We don't need piers,
relevant.
no. We can
Okay.
actually do a regular foundation with flow vents.
Good.
My
Yeah.
understanding was this whole lot is in a flood zone.
Yeah, no, that's what Leon
They're in there.
showed on his survey.
Is Zone B, Zone C?
Yeah, it's Zone C, so it's not considered, it's a zone, but it's not considered like a flood zone.
Okay. What's the total elevation of the house?
Yep, I can get you that. Let me get into my. So the total elevation to the finished is 26'11".
26 feet?
26 foot 11 from the finished grade to the highest peak.
Okay. Are you gonna need new permits and DEP?
No, so I sent all the updated information to Anna Smith at the DEP, and she's gonna be updating the the existing DEP permit.
Okay. I didn't see a pretty thorough erosion plan on this one. Are you going to supplement with a better erosion plan?
Yeah, I can certainly have Leon Blood do a plan for that, yep.
I think it would be a good idea considering you're in the flood zone.
Right, yeah.
The other thing that we never really looked at, I think, when we looked at this first, is that, is there gonna be landscaping around lawn?
There's going to be some landscaping, yeah, yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, I would have a problem if we didn't restrict fertilizer use there. You're so close to the water.
Okay,
Fertilizer and pesticide use.
okay.
You're talking about adding a condition as to the type of fertilizer, not that,
Not the type of fertilizer, but fertilizer and pesticides, restricting it to, maybe if you want to put down lawn fertilizer, that would be the only thing you could put down in maybe once a year in the spring. Otherwise, you're gonna get runoff,
Okay,
and there's no reason to do anything else throughout the rest of the year.
Corn gluten. It's great stuff. Entirely organic
I guess
and,
on my, on my usual role of environmental restrictions here.
yes,
Okay.
and of course birds. You going to talk about birds?
You want me to go into bird strikes?
Well, you're
Okay.
going to, I'm sure going to mention it,
Do you
so.
have an architectural design there over those windows, or do those windows have screens so that they're protected from bird strikes since you're in an open area near the ocean?
well, the windows will have screens,
All of them?
all of them, yes.
Okay. That takes care of two of my pet peeves. Okay. Oh, I want to ask one other question. The bluestone patio that you have there, is that considered impervious or?
Yeah, but that's taken
So
into,
that's taken into the footprint?
yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all been calculated.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Okay. Larry, you have anything?
Well, I was just impressed that the percentage of the lot that's going to be occupied by buildings goes down by a substantial amount. That is,
Mhm. Yeah, the existing house is very spread out.
uh,
It's got like a serpentine sort of footprint.
okay. That's great. That's the only thing that comes to mind.
Yeah, don't,
Thank you.
yeah, you're going to talk us through the old FOF?
The difference, is that what you said?
Yes.
Yes,
If
yeah,
you
I've
would-
got them all right here.
Okay.
Are you gonna go down the findings and I'll just,
Well, I figured you could.
if
But-
you,
Okay,
if you
yeah,
would,
sure.
just note
Long
any,
as
yeah, I can see
any
that.
changes, that would help us out.
So this is the original findings of facts back in July of 2022. So number one has not changed, still Michael Spinard and Brian Glaser. And they're still in Andover. Number two has changed. I am the architect, Brian Bodette,
Sure.
at 5 Meadow Drive in Kennebunk. 5 Meadow Drive Extension, pardon me. And number three, the owner of record authorized. I do have an authorization letter from the
Yeah,
owners.
We saw it sitting there.
That's been submitted. Number four is still at 35 Langsford Road. Number five, it's still map 21, block 11, lot 22. Number six, it still is in the shoreline protection zone and partly in the resource protection zone. 7 is still correct on behalf of the owner. Do you want me to read the whole thing or
No,
just
let-
say if
let-
it's
No,
correct?
not at all.
Okay, 7 is still valid. 8 is, we talked about the permit by rule is, I sent
being
Anna
updated,
Smith
isn't it?
all of the updated information, and she's gonna update the permit. Number 9 is still valid, number 10 is still valid, 11 is still valid. 12 is still valid, except I'm going to give you the updated numbers. So,
Yeah, sure.
it went from, so the total existing interior surface area of both buildings is 2,277 square feet, which is still correct. and the proposed interior surface area will be 2495, so 2,495 versus the 2,449. And then it's an increase of 9.6% instead of 7.6%. Again, that's the change from the original
Understood.
findings of facts from the earlier design. Number 13, the total existing interior volume is still 20,978.2 cubic feet, and the proposed interior volume will be 23,473 cubic feet. So I've actually got that one as the total interior. The existing, here, let me get you that one.
I think it was in your application.
It's
Yeah, I think I have that one in the
And it's
application
25%,
itself.
as I noticed, so it's fine.
Okay, number 14, I do,
I'm sorry,
no, it's a
you may
total of
have got it, but-
25.6%.
Right, it's 26%. It's
25.6% from the original one.
and the number is 26, you're saying?
Right here, 26,
I can
347.
look that up.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, you got it? Okay. Number 14, the existing lot coverage is still 28.58%. The proposed lot coverage will be reduced. It's still getting reduced to 24.36% versus the 23.72%,
Okay.
making it less non-conforming. Number 15 is valid, 16 is valid. 17 we
We
talked about with the
17.
flow vents. 18 is still good, 19 is still good, and
Okay, so
20 is still
nine-
good.
On 19, just,
Yep.
that's the easement that you can, I mean, once, you no longer need the easement,
For the sewer?
correct?
Yes, that's
Yeah,
correct.
So what we had suggested that, once everything was done, you could
We could move it.
Extinguish it.
extinguish
Extinguish it,
the,
oh.
yes,
And that's still valid.
okay, good.
Yeah.
And then the rest is,
20 is still good, A, B, C, D, E,
Yep.
F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P are all valid. And none of the other ones have changed either.
okay.
You know, A, B, C, it's, do you want me to go through those individually too?
No, it's
No,
Okay.
thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so, any more questions? I guess we can accept the motion.
I would move that this application be considered complete.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we will have a public hearing 2 weeks from today.
Okay.
So, okay.
Can I
guess-
shut my system down
Yeah.
and switch with, okay, Henry?
Good. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
you,
you all, I
Brian.
Thanks a lot.
appreciate your time.
Yeah.
Let me shut.
okay, and
stop
the next
switching.
item is item 220-302 Seashore Trolley Museum, Sebago Techniques, is the representation, representative.
I'll do that.
No, it seems to work, and so it's just one.
Henry? I've got I have that pulled up, so I can just walk you through it. If you want to just, okay.
Oh, wait, one other thing on the last one. We need a
Case manager.
case manager, and I see someone taking lots of notes.
Yeah.
You want to pick that up? Fine.
Okay, so,
No problem.
case manager is Ed. Okay. So someone from Sebago who isn't Steve Doe. That's weird.
I know it. I was on Steve, though.
That's right.
Steve Doe's trying to retire, I think.
Okay, well,
Let's see, and then I'll just need screen sharing opportunities here.
Introduce yourself.
So I have you up.
Okay, I have a few just renderings and plans to show as well that are not associated with the application.
Okay,
Well, they are associated with the application, they're just not a part of the application package.
Do you need a sidewalk with this one?
I believe all we're doing on this one is
Okay.
they change views.
he's in the,
Everything else is,
he's in the attendees.
Change of views?
yeah, it's an expansion of an existing use. Right?
This is a conditional
This
use.
is a conditional
we
use
go. So we have
of
to
a
approve
museum. We have
the
to approve
expansion.
the expansion of that conditional use.
Okay.
So Nina's asking, should we have a site walk to look at this in person?
It wouldn't hurt.
Could we ride the trolley?
All right.
Just
So,
kidding.
all right, so I think you're all set, Henry.
Excellent, are we live, everybody can hear me?
Yes.
Excellent, no echo. Excellent. My name's Henry Hess, I'm a landscape architect with Sebago Technics, not Steve Doe. With me tonight is Katie Orlando and Steve Berg of the Seashore Trolley Museum. We're here to discuss with you and go over the initial review of a proposed site application at the existing location at 195 Log Cabin Road. So what I have here in front of you on the screen is just initially, real quick, that is the visitor center at the Seashore Trolley Museum, located right here in red, if that's going to show up. And what you can see there, there is actually an existing access or dirt road down across the parking lot. Is that showing up for you? You guys able to see that in red?
That's coming in from North Street, right?
Yep, and North Street is coming in right here. I'm sorry.
Log cabin.
Log Cabin Road,
Log
thank you.
Cabin Road.
Log Cabin Road is coming in that direction. So the site, actually, what we could do is we could make this very straightforward for the group. So the site that's being proposed is a 3,000 square foot building here across from the visitor center. It's about a 1.5-story building that sits about 2 stories tall, and I'll get into that in a little bit further. The project's proposing some improvements to the parking lot within the existing parking area in the form of landscape islands, accessible crossings from the visitor center, as well as accessible ADA parking in front of the new proposed building. The building that is proposed to house a model rail display for.
Could I just stop you for a second?
Certainly.
I'm still playing catch up here. I feel like we're doing this meeting live,
Yes.
and what it feels like is that I'm doing it at home, only I'm standing further away from my screen.
Mm-hmm.
It's very, very difficult to follow right
Certainly.
now. Especially with this stuff going on in the upper right, and it's like there seems to be multiple cursors. So forgive me if I'm just a little slow. Maybe with time, I'll get better.
No problem.
Is this all the new building that we're looking at? Is that all that's on the screen right here? Or is
So-
that some of the existing building as well?
So-
Where's the existing building?
The existing building is this portion that I'm outlining in red right now.
Okay,
This is the existing building, and this parking lot that you're seeing in the aerial all through here is all the existing parking lot.
okay.
What is being proposed?
So what is where the new building is being proposed? What's there now?
Right now, let me back up one. I can go back up there for you. What's there now is an open field.
Okay, thank you.
It's a grass lawn area, and there's a small gravel or dirt access path that runs north and south across the field there.
And the driveway that I pull into when I go visit the Trolley Museum is where?
That driveway is located right here, if it could show. There we go, right through there.
Thank you.
Yep, and you would pull up right
Right.
here, find a nice parking space, and you
Yep.
could walk inside.
And I know you just showed me this. I recognize it now that you've gone through it a little bit slower. Thank you.
If at
Really
any point
appreciate
you
it.
need me to slow down or reiterate anything, I'd be happy to reiterate
All
whatever
right.
we need to for you.
I've caught up for the moment.
And I will certainly aim to slow down to be a little clearer as well. So here we are on the next slide. You'll see that there is the existing building that I'm outlining in red.
Right.
And then what is being proposed is this building down here that is the large white square that I am now outlining. In addition to that building, there will be access walkways around the building to reach the maintenance and utilities rooms, as well as egress walkways for fire safety. In addition to the building and walkways, there is some proposals. It is proposed to have some improvements to the parking area within the existing pavement area for universal or ADA accessible parking spaces and crosswalks for safe crossings between the visitor center and the newly proposed model rail building.
Besides the pavers that you have there, what's behind the tree? Is that just an open area with gravel or mulch or something and benches?
That's a great question. Are you talking about kind of that brown area beneath the
Yes,
tree? Yep.
uh-huh.
So that actually today exists as a mulch area, and what's being proposed is just, you know, refreshing the mulch, delineating the space there a little bit clearer, and there are picnic tables there. We're calling out in the project to retain and keep the existing picnic tables at this current time.
Okay.
So there are the parking lot improvements I spoke to, as well as some striping in the parking lot to make sure that nobody parks in front of this existing gravel access or dirt access road here. So the building itself is meant to house a large model rail display that's being donated to the Seashore Trolley Museum. And I will actually move at this point into the interior of the building and show you the footprint interior here. So to orient you a little bit, let me get my marker out. This portion out here is where the main entrance is, coming in here. So that would be facing the parking lot. But, so the main part of this building, you'll see is towards the rear or the left side of the screen there. And that is where the model rail display would be housed. In the large building, or that large half of the building. In the right side of the building, there'd be conference rooms, an office space, 2 bathrooms for facilities there. And to the north of the page, or to the top of the page within that footprint, in this area up here, what you're seeing is the mechanical room and storage. The next slide here, I'll show you, this is actually that half story that I spoke to earlier. It's actually a mezzanine level that's designed in such that you can go up the stairs and actually look down on the large display. And we'll get into some elevations here, and as well as a few 3-dimensional renderings. So here we're actually looking at the east and west elevations of the building. In the lower elevation, that eastern elevation, what you'll see is this is actually the main entrance on the corner. And on the western elevation, these 2 doors that you see on the top, these here are access to the mechanical room. Here we have the north and south elevations, or the front and the back there, and that north elevation is that front elevation. So this is what you would see from the parking lot. Number of windows, that main entry door on the lower left there of the elevation. And then you can see there are windows to let light into the top floor, even though it is open. But there are windows that let in the light through here. A couple of architectural cross sections. I can speak to these a little bit. You can see the mezzanine level here, where that rail and fencing is. That's where you would be able to stand and look down on the display. I think what might show you the best views of this building is maybe the next couple slides here that show this in a 3D or a picture or visual. So this is the entry perspective as you would see it coming from the parking lot. That's that main entry door on the, I guess, the front left of the building there with the column. Here's that front perspective again, just head on, to give you a little bit better view of what's happening along the front facade. Again, we kind of saw this in elevation, but I think a little bit more detail happens in that three-dimensional view. Here we are on the interior of the space. This is actually looking in the back of the space towards the main entry. So what you'd be seeing is the model rail is not currently displayed in this rendering, but you see the tables and layout, how the lights might hang, and then the windows in that top level to show you again just how the light will get in, as well as the raftering in the ceiling and the roof. Again, this is another 3D image. This is as you enter through the main entry. As proposed, there'd be some, I believe, coat hanging and merchandising on the left, coat racks, etc., and then again, gift store on the left. Oops, jumped around a little bit there, sorry. And now again, if you were on that second floor that I spoke of, looking down from that mezzanine level, you'd be looking over the display. So the tables you see laid out are the display, or where the display would be housed. So from the visual perspectives, that's what I have from, again, just the visuals. Happy to answer any questions or get into any sort of comments you may have regarding the kind of initial or preliminary review here.
Okay, unless I missed it, there's no agent authorization letter from them to you saying that they authorize Sebago to represent them.
You know, there may not be an agent authorization. I believe there was I believe Katie's signature was on the applications. So she did authorize and.
We just need the authorization letter.
Just
we'll
add
make sure
that.
we get that to you guys.
Easy enough.
I didn't catch that.
If that's missing from your applications, we'll make sure that gets to you.
So, Werner, can I?
Yes, sir.
I just need to understand what we're doing versus what you do
Sure. Yeah.
on this project, because, I mean,
Yeah, no, happy to spell that out. So, as you know, so this is a museum, and the museum is identified as a conditional use in the farm and forest zone. And so it's appropriate for the board, to hear and review expansions and major modifications to the site, which is what you have here. You have a new building.
right.
So the planning board's purview here is really for the site plan review piece of it. So that's review of the of the site application that's here. The building itself, in terms of for code compliance, goes through a number of different stages. One, it goes through a state fire marshal review, and then it'll also go through our own local code enforcement building permit review as well. Where it's a commercial building, every part of the design is an engineered design. Everything from the mechanicals through to the structurals that we verify.
Okay. Good, I just wanted to get it
So-
clarified.
So one of the services we'll provide is as a place where there's a public forum. And
Right.
If there's public input on this, we'll hear that, so that'll be good.
Yes, indeed. So, one thing which was suggested here among board members was possibly giving a site walk, just to see the place. And, I mean, I know what the museum looks like at this point, but, just a quick walk around the land.
Yeah, it's not that, the architectural design, we can't understand that. It's that there's an awful lot here on soils and drainage.
Yes.
And it looks like it's about 85% scantic soils. And I'd like to see exactly how this is gonna be laid out. Looks like there's some hydrography around there, and the whole thing drains into Goff Brook there. So,
Yeah, you know, that's a great point. You know, there is some drainage issues that we've been working through with this project in the site plan. I'd be happy to speak to any of those, if the board would like to hear some of that as well. One thing we've been dealing with is obviously runoff from the new proposed site elements, such as the building and walkways that'll be associated with this. Currently, the existing pavement out there is not treated. It is currently running out off into through the drainage patterns to the low points into some of the wetland areas untreated. Just given the nature and the era and of development, that's how that was initially developed. Now with the new proposed building, all the runoff from the roof, it's a metal roof building. All the runoff will be captured in a drip edge along the edges of the building. It'll go through a filtration where it is cooled and collected, and then actually that time in which it's cooled and then moved through the conveyance to the outflow pipe will actually be outletted, not into the wetland, but beforehand. So there won't be any immediate impacts to the wetland due to construction. So by the time that water goes from the roof through the piping system, it's actually cleaned and cooled to be back into the system. Runoff from the proposed sidewalks. The sidewalks are proposed to be permeable pavers. And the permeable basis right now is proposed to treat water that falls within that sidewalk area. Gets conveyed again through a series of under drain pipes after going through a media. And again, that'll go through the same direction as the roof itself and outlet once it's been cleaned and treated through that filtration system. So this project is proposing to treat all the new impervious elements that are associated with it.
you have more questions, Tom?
I do not.
Oh, because I have a few more.
Please.
Is all of this in Kennebunkport? Because the deed, if you read the deed, it looks like part of it's in Kennebunkport and part in Arundel. Has
Sure.
this changed?
No, so the Trolley Museum is split between the two towns. This particular portion of the project is located entirely within Kennebunkport.
Okay, all right. Well, I noticed the abutter list is only Kennebunkport. Do we normally do that? Because I know the people across the road are gonna have something to say, probably.
Yep, yeah, we do folks that are within 200 feet of the site.
Okay, well, wouldn't 200 feet of the site be across Log Cabin Road?
That would include a number of folks on the Arundel side. And we can check and verify that those are included.
Yeah, because the list I saw only, it looked like Kennebunkport
Yep.
people.
Double check that.
Okay. This is, floodlights. You've got a thing set up there for floodlights. How do they work? Are they lighting the building at night? Are you open at night?
Well, actually, that's a great question to speaking to the operations of the building there. What are the hours that you guys are proposing? It'll really just be till evening or dusk, or what's the proposed operational hours?
That's a great question. Regularly during our season, we're open now till 4:30.
If you're going to talk, you have to go into the microphone.
Sorry.
Come on over,
And
Katie.
identify
Wanna pull a
yourself.
chair up?
I would
Come
love
sit
to.
with me.
Hello. So currently, the museum is open from 9:30 to 4:30 during our season, but we anticipate this new building would allow for several youth opportunities after school, after hours year-round. So most likely, the building will be in use through, I don't know the definition of dusk anymore, but maybe 7 p.m., 8 p.m., which sometimes during the year that would be after dark, so.
Well,
Yeah.
one of the problems we have all over this country and all over the world is light pollution. And floodlights, especially if they're aimed upward toward a building, add to that. And during summer season, it affects insect populations quite a bit. So I'd like to know exactly where those floodlights are gonna be, if you're gonna use them at all. Normally, when we look at lighting around buildings, we're looking at the kind of lighting that has a cover around it so that it's always pointed downward at least and just around the buildings. So I'd like to know more about that.
It's a great question. The lights that are proposed are intended to be dark sky compliant. And I believe most of the lights are not, we use the term floodlight, or if you look at that, I believe it's called a floodlight, but I believe the intent is that most of the lights, except for a few smaller ones that might be aimed at the entry itself, should be angled down and should not be angled up and out. To your point, of course, there's some issues there if they're not dark sky compliant there.
Okay, all right.
Okay,
And they'll certainly be on a timer as well.
okay.
I'm gonna go to another of my favorite questions, and that it looks like some of your windows would be perfect for birds to smash into. And, you know, and some of the design of the building, you have some good overhangs, which is good bird-friendly design. But on some of them where they're sitting, they're just tall windows or doors, basically, and you're in an area, you know, where there's a lot of bird activity, there are a lot of trees around and everything. And you're basically inviting bluebirds and swallows and so forth to kill themselves. So I think you ought to take a quick look at that. There's designs you can do to minimize that. There are screens that go on windows. Those windows may not be adaptable to screens, but there's also bird-proof glass. And a lot of places are using it. For example, UNE has designed buildings that have bird-proof glass or bird-proof designs. So I'd like to know what you're doing about that as well.
That's a great question. Speaking to those windows, I know there are screens on the windows. They are to the interior. I'm a little less familiar with the screening you might be talking about. You're speaking of screening that might be to the exterior to prevent impacts with
Screens on the
glass?
exteriors is what I'm talking about, and I noticed that a lot of your windows do have the screens on the exterior, but it looks like your tall, you know, the cut frame ones and so forth may not, and you may have a problem with that.
Yeah, typically if you've got it looks like they're a standard double hung,
Yeah,
you know, that's
a
on,
lot of them.
right, and those would typically have your screens on the exterior.
The other thing I worried about is if you're going to open the building in winter, cleaning and so forth, I would restrict the use of salt. I would just use sand or something else that doesn't run off again, because you've got, you know, drainage problems there. And the other thing I noticed is that that's a running bond on your pavers, which if you're gonna do things in winter, that's the worst type of design to have. That tends to accumulate ice and people slip on it. You might consider a different design. At least that's what I've understood, so. But,
We could certainly consider those. We can certainly consider those elements. You know, with the paver directions themselves and patterns. Again, I would hope. Would you be able to enlighten me a little bit on what those patterns may be less prone to slip and fall, or
okay.
ice damming?
I know very little about it, except that one time when I was planning to do my own brickwork, and I learned how much I had to do it, and I stopped. I read about patterns of brickwork. You know, there's running bond, and then there are patterns where you alternate the width and the length of the pavers. And it's a simple change to designs usually to help keep from making it more slippery.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, it's something we can look into and understand. Right now,
It's just something to look at.
Yeah.
Again, when you say you might want to open that building, you don't want people slipping and falling.
yeah, thank you for bringing
But
that
then
to our
you may
attention.
clear it really well so that you don't have that problem. I don't know. So,
I appreciate you bringing that up. Thank you.
that's my question.
Okay. What this has brought up to me, just in thinking, we're thinking about a change of use. Taking this from being 8 to 4:30 in season to being potentially year-round, that's a big change of use that needs to be specified in your proposal, what that change is intended to be.
I don't think this is
I will
a
point out
seasonal
that
activity, a seasonal use as it's currently in place. It may be that coincidentally, it's not open a lot in the winter, but
No, I don't think they're open after,
I can speak a
after
little bit.
the Halloween run.
I will speak a little bit to the operations, and then I'll pull Katie back up to help clarify some of that. I believe they are open year-round, but you're right, I believe there's an ebb and flow to their programming, and I don't think there's as much programming or different programming in the winter.
Okay.
And they're,
And,
volunteers are in there year
and
round.
please identify yourself.
Oh, sure.
For
My
the
name's Katie
record.
Orlando. I'm the executive director of the Seashore Trolley Museum, legally New England Electric Railway Historical Society. We are open year-round. Our professional staff, our year-round volunteers are there year-round.
Okay.
Typically, the public is mostly there from now, April through December. And then we don't typically have public events from January through March, but we're getting more and more requests from the community to use our space. So it's mostly Kennebunkport groups using it for free. Not
Sure.
trolley rides, but
Yeah.
other uses.
Okay. All right. Ed?
Just a couple, will the new building be visible from Log Cabin Road?
I would imagine it won't be very visible through Log Cabin Road. There's quite a tree line along the entry drive from Log Cabin Road into the site. Now, you might have a peekaboo view through there as limbs
No, that's
fall,
fine.
but yeah.
I'm just trying to differentiate between the things that I know will be taken care of by the code enforcement office and the type of things that maybe public comment might be interested in and the like. And can you say something about septic and water? I see in the application that the water is currently provided by a well.
Correct.
You're obviously will be, I can only imagine, increasing the number of visitors. You've made some projection of that. Are you saying that the existing well is sufficient to cover that? And some comment on that. And similarly with the septic, the application says there's no sewage disposal right now, and that seemed wrong. Because later on you say there's an existing leach field. So I'm confused about that, and if you could help me.
Certainly, I'd be happy to clarify that. So the well on site is currently a public well and is tested regularly, and results are sent to, oh my goodness, Department of Public Health.
Yeah.
And there will be flow tests on the well itself to make sure that any new domestic line, right now it's proposing a 2-inch domestic line into the proposed building. The water usage in the building is for 2 bathrooms and a water fountain. So we anticipate very limited uses or limited increases in the well usage itself, but those flow tests will be done prior to construction to make sure that if a pump or any storage is needed, it'll certainly be included in the mechanical rooms.
Okay.
And to clarify the septic as well, it's a great catch. There is an existing pump station on site, just adjacent to the existing visitor center. And right now that pump station pumps to a leach field that's well outside what would be a large radius for a public well itself.
So it's a private septic right now,
Correct.
and is there going to be any change to that?
Oh, let me I believe I might have misspoke, because that visitor center does handle public, it is open to the public, and so while it may be operated by the Seashore Trolley Museum, it is that septic system, yes, it's not owned and operated by Kennebunkport, so in that
Right.
regards, it is private, yes.
Right. Are you expanding that?
So what's gonna happen is we're gonna be installing a new pump station out the back of onto the rear of the proposed building.
Yep.
And that will actually pump effluent to the existing pump station, which is being upgraded, just and maintained. That'll then continue out to the existing leach field that has storage.
All right.
And there will be an HHE 200 submitted for the design, and we believe we have also included some pump station design calculations as well for the flows of the anticipated sewage flows.
Do you think you're going to double your visitor that you have in a year with this new? I mean, this is a fabulous addition you're making to what's already a really important asset to the community. I would think you're going to draw from near and far for this. And people are gonna wanna hold their wedding receptions there, and, you know, it just seems like it's gonna, and to see it here, the rendering is beautiful. So I'm thinking, wow, there's gonna be a lot more people coming. They're gonna go to the bathroom. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I think this pump station and septic tank that's associated with the proposed building,
Yeah.
I was anticipating about, I believe, I'd have to go double check my calculations, but we're anticipating the flows for about 200 gallons a day.
Yeah.
And that's, so what that is, it's a typical 2-bathroom public use. And that is very similar to what they actually have at the visitor center. So while there is going to be potentially some added traffic for the proposed building, we're also now not spreading it. We're not just using the pump
Right.
station from the visitor center, but now there's essentially doubling the bathrooms with the new use here as well. So there'll be bathrooms in the visitor center available as well as the
So-
proposed building.
Plain language for my simple,
yeah.
simple mind here. We're talking doubling the bathroom capacity. Basically, you're doubling the space, maybe doubling the activity, doubling the bathrooms, but you're keeping the same leach field.
The
Is
leach
that,
field-
is that okay?
The leach field does have the capacity for up to about 1,300 gallons of sewage, and I believe we're going to be below that, that
Okay.
particular number.
All right, so that's the plan.
Yep.
All right, has the Kennebunkport Fire Chief looked at these plans? I know it's gonna have a state fire marshal review. What does our chief think about this in terms of, you know, his current
Yep.
ability to?
Yeah,
Take
we've
your-
passed it along to, to Jay, and we'll solicit a memo from him.
Gut reaction was, this looks
Yeah,
okay.
Primarily what we look at, here in terms of, the local jurisdiction is gonna be location, access, truck access locations. and things
Emergency
of that
vehicles and.
of that nature.
But
Yep.
also, is there gonna be water to fight a fire if the need was there? And that would come from the existing
Yeah,
well?
and that's,
Or he would have to carry in water?
potentially, but and that gets reviewed though through the state fire marshal's office, all the design elements there, and our jurisdiction then will primarily focus on the site itself in terms of, like I said, the standpipe location and things like that. But as far as the interior, component pieces, that all gets handled
That's
through
gonna
the
get
state.
taken care of by the
Correct.
people that do that for a living? Yeah,
You got it.
okay.
Yep.
That's all I had. Thank you.
Okay. Larry?
Well, I did have a couple of questions. So I was glad to see you're going to treat the water running off the roof, and you're going to flow that through some treatment devices to the wetlands. So do you have a plot plan showing the location of all those water treatment facilities?
Yes, in the application on the plan set here, let me see if I can pull that up for you.
Okay.
So in plan view, what you're seeing is this hatched line here. Let me see if let me draw it on there really clearly. This hatched line through here where I'm drawing in red, along the edges of the building. That is where our drip edge is proposed. That'll have a 4-inch under drain that then ties into the storm drain or another pipe. Once the water has flowed through the treatment and the drip edge, it flows through this storm drain this way to a structure that handles another pipe coming in as well before both of those are outletted this direction to the low point. And in section, I will pull up the detail for you to show a little bit more information if I can. Here we go. So right here we have our crushed stone media, as well as filter fabrics, and the dual wall perforated under drain that'll help collect the water from that. And so the point of going through this drip edge is to cool the water from the metal roof, and cooling the water in this stage for a metal roof per the Maine Department of Environmental Protection is treatment for the roof. can speak a little bit to it while we're here on the permeable paver section, but this is that same sort of section where we provide a number of layers of whether it's geotextile fabric or aggregate and crushed stone to help filter out other pollutants as well through the pavers.
And did you say you are going to take water samples once a year and send them off to?
Yeah, those will be required for the well itself. Yep,
For the
and
well,
Seashore
okay.
Trolley Museum is currently doing that today for their existing visitor center.
Okay, but not for the waste, not for the runoff water.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. And so, I guess the wetlands that in question is off the edge of that, the plot plan you were just showing us. I guess it's out there to the right.
Yeah, this actually might be one of the better ones to show it on. You're exactly right. So the wetlands are off to this edge here.
So is there, I don't know, do wetlands ever get overloaded with water? I mean, do you have to be concerned about a stream nearby that could overflow? I don't know. What are the impacts on the wetland and then on any stream body that might be taking it somewhere else, wherever that might go,
That's
to
a
the
great
ocean,
question.
I guess?
We've provided a full stormwater report that I believe some town staff will be reviewing as well, that through the series of calculations, we're showing that we're not exceeding any peak runoff rates from a 25 and 2-year storms, 50-year storms. We're either meeting what is the existing condition or we're less than the existing conditions with the proposed building.
Okay,
So we
great.
won't be adding or surcharging any of the flows.
All right. So, one of my favorite topics is soil strength, and so were you going to take any soil borings, just to, at least one, just to see what kind of soil you have there, see where maybe the ledge is, or I mean, I can see you're going to have some sort of, it looks like a spread footing type of foundation, but did you want to back that up with a, soil sample, soil boring?
Certainly, yeah. If it wasn't a part of your application, I'll make sure it gets to you guys. There were geotechnical borings taken.
Okay,
at the
great.
site.
Good, okay, thank you.
Yep.
And then, okay, as part of your application, could you propose or provide some sort of a safety plan? And by that, I mean, I know the fire chief is gonna look at all this and everything, but, it'd be nice to see the location of handheld fire extinguishers, and if you had any other fire extinguishers, and whether or not you're gonna have a sprinkler system, and then if there was any differentiation, between areas in terms of fire protection in the walls. Anyway, a safety plan would be nice, which could also act as like an emergency egress plot plan. Anyway, those tend to be very
Not
useful.
something that's required for the fire marshal, though.
Yeah, I mean, that'll show up on the submitted architectural plans.
Okay.
That'll
right.
have all of the, if there's any pull stations required, those locations get called out. Any extinguisher locations are called out,
Okay,
as well as part of the architecturals.
great, thank you. And, I guess that's it, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, just why we were confused. You have our application form, and under type of sewage disposal, you checked none when you meant to check private septic, so.
Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Would it be okay if I just added one additional thing, because some of the answers have almost come close to saying it, but our property, we actually house one of the town's fire ponds, and the reason why there's wetland on the side that Henry pointed out was when it was installed 16 years ago, we intentionally created that path for water to fill the pond. There's actually town-owned hydrants just outside of the frame of the image that's on the screen, and the town of Arundel and Kennebunkport share and come out and do trainings in the fire pond once a year. But I believe that was installed maybe 16 years ago. Werner's actually the one that told me this when I first arrived. And it was because our neighbors across the street in Arundel had a house fire. Since then, I know there's another hydrant on Log Cabin Road by the culvert on the Arundel side. And luckily, I don't believe we've had to use the hydrant for ourselves or other abutters since the hydrant was installed. But that's also, I think, one of the contributing factors to the wetlands that were not originally there when the museum was founded, so.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
I'll make one more comment, and that's I'm very pleased to see that either Steve or you has included in the plantings almost all native plants. Appreciate it.
We try to do that as best we can.
Okay. There are no more questions from us guys, I guess.
I would say with the, inclusion of an authorization letter, I would deem
Yeah.
this complete.
Right.
Sure.
I would move that we agree that this is complete.
Okay, second that. Yep,
All right. In favor? In favor?
yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Looks good.
Thank you.
So, once again, 2 weeks from now,
Mhm.
a public hearing.
So we're backing off of having a site visit at this point.
Well, do you want to have a site?
I'm not
Well,
asking for one,
no,
I'm just.
no, but,
I
your
brought it up
neighbor
and
is.
we left it hanging.
I think it'd be nice to have, to be able to do a quick walk around if we could.
You think the public would appreciate it? I mean, I think that's the only,
Well, I mean,
that's our reason to
It could
do
be done, either just you personally go out and with
Okay, go out.
somebody and check out the thing, but I think it'd be nice if April could.
So that'll add, just so the board's aware, that'll add some additional time, and what you may run into is, you may run into the ability of not being able to have the public hearing in 2 weeks.
Okay, well, maybe what we.
Just in
would-
terms of getting notice,
Okay.
getting notices and things like that out.
Nobody else needs it. I live right down North Street, so I can just run up there and look around.
Okay, and, yeah, you could maybe arrange with one of those folks to, okay, so Nina will come separately and will not require,
I'll call
Hey.
you.
okay?
Thank you.
Thank you all
Very
very
good.
much for your
So
time.
we need a case manager for this. So
Case manager.
don't all jump up at once, but
Well,
Okay.
I'll be glad to do this if you.
you want to do this one? Okay.
I'll do it if you don't.
I don't mind, whatever Tom prefers.
Well, no, it's just whether you wanted to do.
I want to do this one.
He wants to do the
I want
pier.
to do the third one.
He wants to
Okay,
do
well,
the
I'll
Cape
do this
Porpoise.
one.
Okay.
That'll get me out there looking around.
There you
All
go.
right.
That's
Okay, so Nina is case manager.
Okay.
You can get the wording on the conditions right too then.
That's right.
Yeah.
Pesticides.
I'll definitely put
Yep.
them in.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you all for your time.
The,
Really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Appreciate your patience.
All right, the last item is item 220303, Town of Kennebunkport, GEI Consults, and Barney Baker, PE. And there it is, the agent authorization letter.
It was,
No, this is the new one, the one we're talking about now.
Oh, I
It
see.
definitely does have one,
Yeah,
so.
good, good.
All right, so if you can identify yourself, please.
Yes, good evening. My name is Barney Baker. I'm a civil engineer, and I work with GEI Consultants. We're a local firm in Portland, and my area of expertise is waterfront facilities design. And the town has retained
Yeah. we're
a
getting there.
GEI to do a rehabilitation on the Cape Porpoise Pier. And I just would add that this is the second facility that we've done for the town. We also did Government Wharf. This one's been a long time coming, but it's coming together nicely.
Could you move that mic a little bit closer to you, sir?
Sure.
Thank you.
Can you hear that better?
That's great.
Okay. So, yeah, that's the same presentation I've got. That's good, Warner. So, why don't I just go through and explain? So, I think everybody knows where the Cape Porpoise Pier is. It's a municipal facility that has been in that area for a long time. It currently is in, elements of it are in pretty tough shape, and I'm going to kind of go through that. So this slide here, who uses the facility? Well, the primary users of the facility are the municipal working waterfront. It is the base of operations for 55 or more commercial fishermen. It's the largest commercial fishing fleet between Portland and Kittery, some 50 miles in either direction. And it also has the benefit of having direct access to the Gulf of Maine. It's also the Cape Porpoise Harbor has been improved with by the Army Corps of Engineers, and has deep water adjacent to the pier that also serves a mooring field. The facility also serves recreational boaters that keep their boats in the mooring field. It has a dinghy dock for them. The other people that use the facility are transient boaters that come up the coast, primarily in the summer. Next slide. So, what is the project purpose and need? And I put this slide up here because I wanted to emphasize a few things with this application that may not be clear. Primarily what we're doing here is we're repairing the facility. There are elements of the pier that are in tough shape that I'll show you and go into later. We're also bringing the facility up to code. We're providing access and railing in accordance with the American with Disabilities Act and also OSHA. And we're making operational upgrades to improve the pier efficiency. We're widening one section of the pier, which the fishermen have trouble using. You get one truck on it and it kind of ties that whole section of pier up. So we're widening that area. We're separating pedestrians from vehicles to avoid conflicts. And we're also replacing the bait shed. That's the building that's out there. It's got some issues. It's got some foundation problems, and it's also very old. It's refrigerated, but the insulation is not very efficient. And it also sits within the lowest floor of the building is below the base flood elevation. So, but just to be clear, we're not expanding the facility at all. We're keeping the same facility that's there. The number of fishermen is not going to go up or anything like that. There's going to be no change in the current use. We're not adding any uses that aren't there already. So the next slide. So this is the existing facility, and I think maybe the aerial that was on the first page shows it better. But basically, you have the bait building kind of prominently in the center of the pier. That is on fill that was added to the site when it was developed many years ago. It sits on an old granite seawall that is kind of coming apart. And it butts up to a timber pier, last rehabilitated, I think, in the around late 70s, 1980. And the superstructure of the pier is in great condition, but the substructure is not in good condition. So elements of the pier, the section that extends to the right of the screen, that long finger, that's actually was new in 1980. That's in very good condition. The section of pier in front of the building, that's where there are foundation problems. And so that needs to be taken apart and reconstructed. And then the wing to the left of the screen, or the left of the building, that's traditionally where dinghies land, and that has some very steep gangways to it. So we're upgrading those, and we're upgrading the floats. So next slide. So this is a long list of items that we're fixing here, and I kind of alluded to it in an earlier slide, but we're really just fixing what's there and making code compliance improvements. So for structural repairs, we're fixing an unstable bulkhead, and we're replacing sections of the pier that aren't well-founded. The bait shed building is being replaced with code-compliant storage and harbor master's office, or the pier manager. And actually, Chris Mayo, who's the harbor master, couldn't be here tonight. He's not feeling well, but he is on Zoom. So he's taking it all in and available for questions if we have them. So the office that's down there, because the lower elevation of the pier is below the base flood elevation, the office is not suitable for a harbor master's office or a livable space. So that is getting elevated and going up to a second-story level. So regulatory improvements, we're bringing the structure into compliance with your flood hazard development ordinance. We're putting an ADA compliant gangway in, and we're adding railing for pedestrian safety. Functional improvements, really to improve the operation of the facility and make everything run more efficiently. The bait building will be refrigerated. It is now, but it's the system is pretty old and inefficient. So the building that we're designing will be compliant with the insulation requirements for new buildings that are currently in the main code, and we'll have a new refrigeration equipment that is put on the second level, so it's clear of any flood inundation. And incidentally, I keep talking about the base flood elevation being higher than the lower floor of the building, but that's based on the new maps and also a correction, a LOMAR that Ransom has done. And I keep asking the fishermen, and we've been working on this project for a while, there aren't any fishermen down there that have ever seen the water come over the top of that pier. So we're obviously going to comply with FEMA's requirements for base flood elevation, but just to point out that elevation has never, at least to our knowledge, been achieved. So we're going to replace floats. It's a pier facility, and we're going to increase the float space available. Why are we increasing the float space? Partly because the project on such a small site, we're going to have to phase the construction. So we are going to add some floats off the south end of the pier, And those floats will be available for fishermen to use. They can dock alongside a float rather than alongside a pier. Some of them will, would rather do that. It also allows space for transient boats to come in, and also boats from the mooring field to fuel up, because there is diesel and gas at that facility. And just keeps them out of the way of the working waterfront, which is the section of pier that's located next to the bait shed. The other thing we're doing is we're improving the utilities. We're taking overhead power and putting it underground, which is a good idea whenever you're working near the water. We're getting the fuel tanks, current underground fuel tanks. Those are being relocated to a higher location out of the flood elevation. And we're also putting in a year-round water service and adding sanitary sewer. And we're putting in a pump-out facility. So next slide, please. So this is where, if I had a pointer, I would start pointing at things. But so the bait shed building is fairly prominent. It's blue in the middle of the page. Everything that's shaded blue on this drawing, and you have the same drawing in your packet, is new construction. So maybe the way to do it is to start at the right-hand end of the screen. And the first thing in the screen is we are improving or increasing we're adding a transient boat landing of 100 linear feet. Those are the floats, the new floats that you see there. And my assistant is going up to show where those are. Lori King, I think everybody knows her. We're also adding an ADA gangway to that float, which is, for those in the industry, the requirement now is 80 feet. So we're adding an 80-foot gangway. So that'll be an accessible landing for anybody using the facility. We're widening a section of the south pier so that vehicles can pass one another as they go out to that section. And then as we come back towards the bait shed, that section of pier and the existing bait shed building is all going to be taken apart and reconstructed, because that's where the foundation problems are. And then to the left of the pier facility, we're putting in new floats for the dinghies.
And set up for the rig.
Yeah. Thank you, Lori. And so why is it such a long linear structure? Well, there are 55 fishermen using it, plus all the recreational boats. So there's usually boats tied up alongside that face, but it's also parallel with the Army Corps Channel. And then we're creating a separate walkway back up to the parking area, and also we're going to put new utilities in. So next slide. This is taken from the water, looking at towards the bait shed building. This is a repair that was done last year, because that section of the pier is in trouble. So this is really just emphasizing that the real main reason for the project is to rehabilitate what's there. The next slide shows sections of the granite bulkhead below the timber pier. Timber's in great shape, but the foundations are coming apart and unraveling. That bulkhead is pretty unstable. So next slide. So this slide is really just showing The LOMAR that Ransom Engineering has done, that's essentially correcting the FEMA flood map and providing us an elevation in which to design the building to. Ransom are the kind of the rock stars in the state for doing any sort of flood inundation analysis. The next slide. This is, I thought this might help kind of show, so the green line is the existing pier elevation, so the line coming off the green note there shows that our pier elevation is at, in NAV D88 datum or landside datum, where the mean sea level is close to 0. The top of the pier is at 9.3. The LOMAR, which is the 100-year base elevation that we're designing to, is at elevation 12. So that's that upper red line. So as you can see, it's predicted that the building will get inundated by wave action. So we're designing the building to resist that. And why aren't we raising the whole facility? Because that would just be prohibitively expensive, and it's unlikely to, the cost benefit of doing that is just not there. It would just be such a big undertaking to do that. So what we're doing is we're making sure that the pier and the building are strong enough to resist that predicted flood if it ever occurs. So next slide. So we're replacing the bait building, and this is the elevation that you would see from the back side of the site, from the parking lot. Thank you. And so the building shape in the foreground is just a simple single-story structure that comprises half the building, and that's very similar to the building that's there now in terms of shape and volume. And what you see, just like you have now, is you see two bait shed doors. That's how the bait is put into the building. And the one change that we've made is on the right of your screen, we've put a covered walkway that goes the length of the building. And so why did we do that? Well, the current situation right now is anybody that's going to the dinghy dock to get in their dinghy and go out to their boat has to walk outside of the building, and that's very close to the edge of the pier. And during the winter, a lot of ice builds up there and runoff builds up there. So by putting in this covered walkway, it's an effort to make the site safer for pedestrians, and also discourage pedestrians from walking around the other side of the building where they would get in the way of the working waterfront. So we're trying to segregate working waterfront from recreational waterfront, and that's how we're doing it on this side. So also what you see in this view is a second story. And so why do we have that second story? Well, it's to give a code compatible office point for the harbor master / pier manager, that's Chris Mayo, but it's also to provide an equipment space for the refrigeration equipment, for the electrical junction box, for any power services has to be up and elevated. So that's where that goes. We're also putting a bathroom in there. There's no bathroom on the site now. Next slide. This is the view from the front of the facility. Again, there's a bait shed door for getting bait out onto the pier, and that's put in the lobster boats that go out fishing. There are some windows in the storage room in the workshop below. There are no windows in the bait shed. There are no windows in it. If you want to see anything, you have to turn a light on. And the windows that you see on this facade are into the harbor master's office. And we will be using double hung windows where we can. The long window that you see that's, or the two long windows that you see, we had intended those to be awning windows. We'll need to take steps to make that glass kind of bird safe. But obviously the intent of those windows is to give the harbor master a clear view of the harbor. He is charged with running the facility, keeping the fishing operations in good shape and keeping the harbor safe. So it's important that he has a good view of the harbor, and that he's certainly going to get one from up there. Next slide. This is a side view, and this shows the stair up to the harbor master's office is an exterior stair, and you can see the vents. As you get to the top of the stair, there's vents to the right, which are essentially the intakes for the refrigeration equipment. That's how the harbor master gets up there. There's no interior stair. Everything, because of the different uses, the harbor master's office has a fire separation from the storage areas below, and is heated in the winter. And again, there's a restroom up there, and utility services. So next slide. This is just another view. I would point out that one of the FEMA requirements is that there are breakaway panels or vents in the wall, so that if wave action ever occurs, that the building will be able to kind of withstand any loads that are put on it. And that's a code requirement that we're meeting. Next slide. And this slide is really a summary of what the changes in the bait shed footprint are, and what the volume changes are. So in terms of the footprint of the shed, it's increasing by 15%. And where that increase is almost entirely located to capture that walkway that feeds the dinghy dock and separates the pedestrians. So that is an exterior open walkway, but that increases the footprint by about 15%. The actual bait shed is marginally, it's virtually the same size as the existing, and only increased a little bit by the bump out from the second floor level, where the harbor master's office is. In terms of volume, the volume of the shed, with those calculations there, increases about 23%. And that's because of the second floor mechanical room, bathroom, and harbor master's office that's put up there. So next slide. So here's the site plan again. That's in your packets. And I just put that there to kind of be a feeder into the lot coverage information, which is on the next slide. So lot coverage, as you can imagine, the site is very highly developed. There's basically a total impervious area is currently 83% of the site. There is some green space at the location of the little park area that's up near the parking area, and no changes are going to occur there. And so we have increased the buildings because the site also includes the chowder house and the bait shed, those town property. And we've increased the we've substituted building for a pavement essentially, and so the overall impervious area is unchanged. The green space is unchanged. The only thing that is swapped is a little bit of pavement is swapped for a little bit of building. And then I've put in a development summary down below that captures really the waterside elements of the project. And the takeaway from that is this is on the site plan package that you've got in your set. But the takeaway from here is that we're increasing the area of the floats by about 52%. Those floats are floating in deep water so that the boats have access to them. They don't factor in the impervious lot coverage. And we're also increasing the face dock length. And we've been working with the fishermen to develop that, and the reason is not to increase the number of people using the facility, it's just to make it that much more efficient so that more boats can be loading and unloading at the same time. So next slide. I hope you guys can read this because I'm having a lot of trouble. So Kennebunkport Standards Review, and I sort of went through an outline in the application, and I'm kind of repeating it here. In terms of zoning, this facility is in Cape Porpoise Square zone, the CPSC. It's also in the Shoreline zone, and it's also in the resource protection. And I just note here, an essential service is permitted in all these zones. Storage and repair of fishing equipment are permitted uses within the CPSC zone, with fish processing and commercial marine as a conditional use. So what we're kind of, the key points of this application are, and the reason it's eligible for site plan approval, is there's no change in the existing use. Again, we're repairing and rehabilitating an existing facility. We're calling it an essential service. This is the only municipal landing on Cape Porpoise Harbor. The bait shed provides a refrigerated space for the bait that is needed for commercial fishing. So, and that kind of leads into the next thing. Everything about this facility is a water-dependent use. And why is that important? From a permit perspective, we're obviously very close to the coastal wetland, and so we're able to do that. We're not pushing any regulatory standards. It's recognized that for a water-dependent use of this type, that it's generally sited right next to the water. Next page. And so, okay, so shoreline zoning review. So I just listed the key components of the standard there. Action to avoid and minimize soil erosion. We've got erosion control notes on sheet G2. Consideration of any interference with natural flow. We're not creating any new obstructions in the resource, so that won't be impacted. Consideration of project attributes that lower water quality. We're keeping, again, the same use and conditions that are currently there. We're actually preventing a lot of erosion from occurring where the seawall is coming apart. So that'll all be addressed with the new construction. And we're taking steps to mitigate any impacts from flooding. So next slide. So performance standards, erosion control. Again, we provide these notes on sheet G2. Also, the contractor must be a certified coastal contractor. The DEP provides courses for them. Parking lot design criteria. So here, we're not redesigning the parking lot. We're just going to put everything back the way it was before. We're not making any changes in the use. Everything works down there now. So you won't see any thing in our application about parking. Next slide. So these are all the permits that we need. And the reason I put these here is we're expecting the planning board to make their approval contingent on us getting all these permits. And so several of them are with the town, the building, plumbing, flood hazard development permits, the water district, wastewater. We've made preliminary inquiries on all those permits. We're getting a state fire marshal's permit for the building. We're applying or have applied to Maine DEP for an NRPA permit, and we should be getting that shortly. So they're looking at everything within 75 feet of the coastal wetland and also the facilities that are in the wetland. We have received a submerged lands lease for the expansion of the floats, and our U.S. Army Corps of Engineers permit is currently in progress. So with that slide, I will ready for questions.
Why don't we start with
Okay, thank you.
Larry?
Thanks for that. That was a good presentation. Appreciate all the effort you've obviously put into this. One thing I noticed was that right now there's no sewer disposal out there, but you're proposing to have year-round public sewer connection?
Yes, that's right. There is sewer located at the Chowder House. So there's we're going to drain into an existing pump station that is right next to the Chowder House.
And is that going to be, do you have any idea about the capacity? I mean, if you're going to connect a new source, I mean, is it going to be like for 100 or 10,000 gallons a day or something?
Well, we'll have to provide an HH
Okay.
the health form. We have been talking with the town engineer and the public works director to get that squared away.
Okay, so the size of the, I mean, I guess it could impact the size of the existing facility, and then that would just be part of an expansion of that?
Yeah, I don't think so. We have it's a single bathroom, so the effluent load's going to be very small.
Yeah, the current restrooms at the Chowder House facility are our public restrooms, and so this will just be an employee restroom that we're adding.
Okay, all right, thank you.
So it's not for the fishermen?
Right. Not for the fishermen,
Yeah,
okay, that's what I was
stairs.
wondering, okay.
Unless they're very, very nice.
Okay, all
Did
right.
you mention they have pump out there? They're gonna have a pump out there for the boats and stuff?
Yes, on the new floats that extend to the south, those floats, there will be a pump out station there. And that's paid for by the Maine Department of Environmental Protection has a program where they pay for 90% of the municipal installation.
The new floats that you're making, are they gonna be wood, or are they gonna be composite material?
So that's a great question. These are, that we've designed are wood. They have, it is a modern wood design, though. They don't have any wood that extends into the water, because that's typically where they rot and come apart. So they are held up by these black plastic flotation drums that are very rugged and resilient. And so that's your modern wooden float now. And they do very well. They last a long time and are generally redecked if the decking gets damaged. But
Is it treated wood?
it is treated, yeah.
So you don't worry about salt air and stuff like that, and marine, you know?
It's, they have approval under EPA. EPA recognizes that wood next to the salt water, requires treatment in order to have any sort of length of life. But that treatment is carefully regulated, so it's a treatment that is not going to poison, the people walking on it. So
I'm not worried about the people, I'm worried about the fish.
it won't poison the fish either.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So then I had a few other questions. So, I'm looking at your sheet, G2.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate you having a section on design criteria. And so one of the questions that came to mind was, what is the design life that you're targeting these improvements for? I mean, is it 50 years or? I mean, specifying a design life actually will affect your thought process in terms
Yeah.
of material selection in particular.
So a facility like this, 50 years is a good number.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
Can you document that in your design premise?
we can.
Design life 50 years?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And then I did look on the map, and it looks to me like there's a long fetch open to the ocean. I didn't see any breakwaters. So, I mean, is that true? If a storm comes from the south, basically it's unlimited fetch, right?
Right, so this area is in a V zone, so it is termed a velocity zone. And that's not unusual for the coast of Maine. It's, I mean, your federal government has invested in, harbor improvements, and you have a mooring field there. So this facility is not used during really rough weather.
Sure.
So the fishermen don't, they just, they don't use it when their boats would do damage to the face of it or something.
Okay, thank you. That leads, but my point is that on your second point there, you say the maximum wind speed is 100 miles an hour, which I appreciate. That sounds realistic to me.
Yeah.
And could you, but that is the maximum sustained wind, right? Could you insert the word sustained? Because you,
It's a design guide that
yeah, but,
is put out by,
okay, but the point is it's sustained wind. This has an impact on my next few questions.
okay.
And the reason I mention that is because your 3-second gust could be a lot more, but we're not going to talk about that. That's irrelevant at this point. So, because you have a maximum sustained wind of 100 miles an hour, and you have essentially unconstrained fetch, open ocean, then you could get some significant waves, certainly more than the 3 feet that you've specified there. So, so my question is, could you go back to your hydrographic firm and reconcile the expected wave height given the wind speed? And let me just say that my point of reference, okay, was the 1991 perfect storm, where they also had, well, it was, it was a confluence of various meteorological events. But the point is they had breaking waves on the coast of New England, not necessarily here, but on the coast of New England, 30 feet. Okay, so that's crest to trough, right? So the disaster scenario, and I'm not saying this will happen, and when you go back to your hydrographic firm, they're going to help you sort this out. But the disaster scenario would be all of this stuff happens together at high tide. So you have whatever the high tide is, 14 feet plus another 5 feet of storm surge plus 15 feet of water. You could have a substantial amount of water coming across the dock. I know you've got those little breakout panels, but when you add it all up, it could be a big problem. But again, if you could just reconcile, and I think 3 foot, no matter what you do, I think your 3 foot wave is very optimistic. Okay, so could you adjust that? But the immediate consequence is when you design your riprap for your breakwater, your shore protection, the wave height has a major impact on the size of rocks you need. In fact, I would guess that you're getting some failures because the rocks are too small. So when you reconcile all this information, I think you may find out you have some significant need for some significant boulder sizes to resist your 100-mile-an-hour, the wave height associated with your 100-mile-an-hour wind speed. Okay, so it's kind of an iterative thing. You might need to take a few passes at it, but
Yeah,
I think it will. By considering this, I think it will improve the likelihood that the facility will last for 50 years. Okay, that's my point.
so you're absolutely right. The perfect storm is something that we hope will never happen.
Yep.
The forces that we consider are based on probability, and just like the FEMA models are based on a storm event with a return of 0.01.
Yeah, 1% per year. Sure.
The 100-year storm.
That's a 100-year storm. Sure. Yeah.
So there's always a possibility that we're going to get a higher storm event. But so the way we reconcile that as designers is we consider a factor of safety on the 100-year event, because that's kind of an accepted model. And then we look at a higher event and determine what that factor of safety is.
If you can design this facility to withstand the 100-year storm, it's going to be solid. That'll be great.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe you want to add that somewhere in here, 100-year storm. 50-year design life for the facility, considering the 100-year event.
Okay. Yeah.
But anyway, I think you see what I'm getting at. I think I'm working on trying to see if you can reconcile wave height and riprap rock size with those waves. Okay. And let's see, I had a few other questions here.
Yeah, I've got a note from Chris, and
Okay.
Chris is down there sometimes 24/7, particularly during rough weather.
Yeah.
But he's just pointed out that it's not totally open ocean. There's a barrier island, a goat island.
I've seen those islands. I know they're there. But
Yeah.
if the storm comes from the south, it's open water as far as you can see. Okay, so I know there will be some benefit to reducing the storm intensity if it comes at a slight angle, but if it comes straight from the south, it's unlimited. So,
But the depth of water changes, which will impact the,
yeah, it means you're gonna have
the
breaking
wave
waves,
formations.
you're gonna have breaking waves sooner. But the point is, okay, I don't wanna debate it because we don't have all the info, but if you could reconcile the 3-foot, okay, the 100-mile-an-hour wind with the 3-foot wave, well, with that, what the actual wave height should be, and then pick the rock size to meet
Okay.
that criteria. That's where I'm going
Yeah,
with this.
okay, yeah, no, good point.
And, okay, I had a few other detailed, well, okay. So then, you were going to add some piles or replace some piles, I think, weren't you?
Correct.
So do you need, detail for pile splices, or are these single-piece piles?
So the timber piles will not be spliced. They'll
Okay.
be single pieces.
Okay.
And we are using some sheet pile material, and that is typically not spliced either, but if it is, it's spliced below the mud line. So the only place where we would anticipate putting any sort of splice, if, for example, they were to start driving the pile and realize the pile that they'd just driven isn't long enough, we would insist they take that pile out and go get a longer one and put it in. With the steel sheet piling, you have some opportunity to, if it's driven, if it's too short, you can pull it out and you can weld it, and you can make it so that weld is well below grade. So that's acceptable in the industry.
Okay, I'm just saying, maybe you want to have a detail on this stuff, I don't know.
Sure.
And then, so I notice you're gonna have a bunch of fasteners from stainless steel.
Yep.
So, I know the default reaction is 316 stainless. So, I have a little experience on this. So, you may want to consider 316L. That's, the metallurgy is slightly different. It has greater resistance to chloride stress cracking and pitting. Just take a look at it, 316L. Now, I don't know how many fasteners you're going to need, but you may want to consider duplex stainless steel. The metallurgy on that is much more robust than 316. It's going to give you a much better 50-year longevity, 50-year performance, I think. Now, it's going to be more expensive, but you may want to just do a little cost benefit. I mean, you're going to have to replace your 316L fasteners, whereas the duplex could last twice as long. And of course, if you don't have to do any maintenance on them, it's a kind of a benefit. Anyway, could you just take a look at comparing the 316L with the duplex fasteners? Now, you're not going to do any welding, right? This is just threaded connections, screws, studs
So
and
the-
nuts.
The connection, the metals for the connection are typically galvanized steel.
Yeah, well, actually, you said, I think in here you have some, you do specify 316 stainless in some
For
locations.
some components.
Yeah, so I'm not gonna, the hot dip galvanizing, I know you're gonna have to stick with that. That's, you may want to overcoat it, of course, because the galvanizing will deteriorate over time.
Yeah.
But that's a detail for you. But wherever you think you need 316 stainless, maybe you want to talk about 316L if you insist on going with that, and maybe seeing how duplex might work out.
Okay.
Let's see here. Okay. Let me see. Then I had,
And just to clarify where you're looking, I said, 50 years on the design life for the pier, but
Yeah.
that assumes that certain components are, maintained and replaced. For example, the decking,
Yeah.
will wear out and need replacing. And typically the life on that is 20 to 25 years.
okay, and I think that'd be great to document in your design basis, wherever there is an exception,
Okay.
that would be great. And, well, I think that's enough. Thank
Good
you.
points, yeah.
Thank you.
Just a quick question for Werner. I think this is all within 30% expansion, so I think we're all fine with it.
Yeah, because it's a water-dependent use, you know, that's not something that you would apply here.
Oh, okay.
30%
Cool.
expansion is gonna only go for those structures that are non-conforming due to setback.
Yeah.
So where it's water-dependent, you know, you don't have a setback issue here.
Yeah.
Yep.
Good.
But
Okay.
arguably, it does, so.
Yes.
Yep.
But it actually is less than 30%
Correct.
anyway.
Yep.
But, okay, thank you. Ed, anything?
Kind of where Tom was going, and maybe Werner, for you, in plain language, why is this before the board?
Sure.
We understand this is not a change in use. I think you said you're not expanding the use. Why are we looking at this? What is it we should be looking for as a planning board that's not being looked at by the code
Well,
enforcement
it's not that
office and the
it's
like?
not that it's not being looked at. You know, it's really, you know, what you have here is a procedural, you know, it's a procedural matter, and it's an opportunity to provide a public forum, you know, for this. But you do have some of those uses that get classified, you know, as Barney pointed out, as conditional uses that are subject to a planning board review.
But it's not changing.
No,
It's not being
but
expanded,
you
it's
do
just
have-
being maintained.
but you do have a replacement, you know, so the building that is there is being replaced.
So it's
It's a
the
replacement of a
degree of
conditional
the
use.
maintenance here has gotten to the point where it's a replacement, and therefore it makes sense
Correct.
to bring it to the
Yep.
planning board. Okay.
Yep,
It's really in that most general sense
you got it.
that we're looking at it.
Yep.
But it's not a conditional use because it's essential services in the Cape Porpoise space.
Well,
Some of it.
you know, so, you know, the other additional, you know, piece to this is that whenever you have essentially a non-residential use like this, also trips it into the purview of the planning board.
You're stuck with me.
So I wanted to ask,
Oh, I will just point out, I know we have, Chris Mayo is in the audience, and I don't know if the town wants to have Chris, add any points, for the initial review here or not. Okay.
I wanted to ask about the fact that this is being made more efficient. You said it's being used by 55-plus commercial fishermen. Our experience is that we make things more appealing, we modernize them, we make them run better. You're going to get an increase in people using it. Do you anticipate that?
So I don't anticipate it, but Chris would be able to speak better to that than I would. We haven't, we've allocated space for bait for the fishermen, so we're not increasing the volume of bait that they're using.
I'm thinking more, before you bring Chris in on this, I'm thinking more along the lines of traffic. I'm sorry. Right now, that's something that's struggled with down there, obviously during the summer months.
Yeah.
And you've done some widening to make that more efficient, to allow the trucks to come in and one to pass each other and the like. And I'm just wondering if you're going to make this a more efficient but busier place than it is today.
So one of the limiting factors for the pier is really the available mooring space. So in order to be a pier member, you really need a mooring as well. And so we are at our max mooring use right now in Cape Porpoise Harbor.
Right.
And the distance people would have to travel to use Cape Porpoise Pier with the mooring someplace else just doesn't make sense, even for the river.
So that makes sense. So the number of users is kind of limited
It's capped,
by
yeah.
but what about in terms of trucks that are coming in to either provide bait or to bring away catch and this type of thing? Do you see any change in that? And
I
this is
don't-
going to tie into the
Yeah.
parking situation,
Yeah.
which
So I
nobody
mean,
likes
part of it
today.
is the selectmen have authority over the pier, and they set rules and regulations and policies over that. And one of the things we've talked about is limiting the number of dealers, limiting, who has access to the pier. And I would say the issue right now is that just like in the rest of America, people are being bought up. Smaller companies are being bought up, and so there's actually fewer in the marketplace. than there used to be. So I wouldn't see that we'd see more people coming to pick up traffic or bait. It's becoming an issue with having bait delivered at all.
Is this going to change the life of the ramp or the 77 restaurant and the other people that vie for parking and traffic and turnabout in that area?
In terms of more traffic?
In terms of making the pier, the changes that we're making in the pier and the, you know, that whole area, is this going to change their experience and their patrons' experience?
So I think the only change I see is that the additional pier that the additional float system that we talked about, and the, would allow perhaps some tie-up space for people to go visit the restaurant without a vehicle. So right now, you can't really tie up at the pier.
Right.
And so that would allow some
So that would be a plus.
That would be some short-term tie-up for people to
Right.
go visit one of the restaurants.
But it's not going to be more commercial trucks
No,
vying for
no.
parking and waiting to use the pier, and
Right.
that's not going to change. If anything, it's going to be
I think the only.
metered out over the day,
I think
maybe.
the only other thing from a fisherman perspective is I think that it will provide some opportunity to serve recreational boats in one part of the pier and commercial boats in another part of the pier. So it would improve safety.
But recreational boats,
So for
Would-
right now, we
wouldn't-
have
wouldn't be-
fuel. We have fuel there.
so those would be boats from,
And so,
from other moorings that would come in for the day
right,
and.
so it could be either recreational boats who are in Cape Porpoise Harbor, it could be people from Goose Rocks, it could even be boats from the river who come down to purchase fuel. And so by having two fuel pumping stations there, one by the new float system and one where it currently is, it allows for people to be separated.
Yeah, to a certain extent, the use of the pier
Laurie,
is,
Laurie?
the fishermen self-regulate the use of the pier. They get up very early to go out fishing, and they're generally back quite early, whereas the restaurants are just, you know, getting into gear and are probably busiest in the evening. So, you know, there is a peer committee that, you know, is kind of charged with, you know, setting rules and operations for using the pier. So I believe that there's a lot of opportunity for kind of, again, for the fishermen to self-regulate by adjusting their fishing schedule to avoid the peak periods that area is used on.
My impression is that the fishermen have had a strong input into this and have really bought into this plan.
They have, yeah.
Has the, so I was sort of maybe questioning whether other people might be affected less positively. So you just mentioned an important group, the committee that monitors that pier, and it probably has representation from the restaurateurs and the people that reside in that area along the road and all of that. What, do they buy into this plan? Have they voiced their support?
So there's been a lot of public meetings, both with the fishermen, but advertised in the local paper.
Yeah, I went
So
to
people have
one
had
of
the
them.
opportunity to come and hear about the project. And I hate to say this, but I first started working on this project in 2016, I believe. So it's been around for a long time.
Yeah, yeah.
People have had an opportunity to speak up. Also, the DEP and the submerged lands process has an abutter notification process that, you know, has gone through, so that people have had ample opportunity to speak up, and just as I would encourage anybody listening tonight that, has a voice or an opinion to speak up.
So is there a letter of support or something from this committee that you say represents what did you call it again? The users group or?
It's a fisherman
No,
group.
Just a fisherman, okay.
Basically, yes, just the fishermen.
All right, so no, I understand they support this. But the public forum, you're saying people have had an opportunity, but you haven't had much input from them?
No.
Okay.
And that, Werner, have you received any comments from the public?
No, but once the board sets a public hearing, we'll send out those public notices, those official notices. But I can tell you, the town has had conversation with the abutters, throughout the design process.
Yeah. Well, I went to one of the meetings, you may have spoken at it, and
Okay.
it's obviously evolved since then, but it's been very clear, and it looks like a wonderful improvement. I just worried that I hadn't heard anything about, possible impacts to
Sure.
other people that don't depend for their life, well, that depend in different ways on that area, and
Yeah.
make sure they have, their input is heard. The one last thing I had is, are there clam flats that are right in that area there for the town?
I don't know that. I mean, there are flats there. I don't know what how productive they are.
I want to take my granddaughter, so I just got my first residential clamming
well done.
permit.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about it, other than one of the places that was mentioned was, it's right down near where the Cape Porpoise Pier is, but it's kind of steep, and you probably don't want to bring your 6-year-old granddaughter down there. So I'm just asking, where are they, and how does this affect them?
Well, Chris is not here, so I can speak for him.
Okay.
Talk to Chris, he'll point you in the right direction.
He says worm digging and clamming further towards Stage Harbor.
Okay. So this doesn't affect them?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Nina, you have anything, or?
Just a curiosity question. Your ADA compliant ramp, is it level?
It's, so for recreational use, if this isn't a public ferry, for example, the ADA has a maximum length that they will allow. And so we'll never be able to achieve in Maine a 1-on-12 grade without having a ramp that's probably 150 feet long. So the ADA recognize that, and they've they say if you can provide an 80-foot ramp, you're meeting the 1-on-12 criteria for 70% of the tidal window, and that's sufficient for them.
I just have visions of, if it went like this and someone in a wheelchair.
Right. No.
That was all.
So I just had one other question. So going back to your bait house, you had that second level where you had, I guess, an office and.
Yep.
So you're actually going to have refrigeration up there as well, I think?
It's a long building, and it's a long upper level, and the harbor master's office is on the water side, and the refrigeration is on the parking lot side.
So do you need some sort of standby generator in case you lose power during a storm?
There isn't one at Government Wharf. That's a good question. I believe the answer is no. We're certainly not providing one. And we are putting solar panels on the roof, though. That's not going to be enough. So Lori's coming to bail me out again.
Okay,
This is Chris.
Oh, it's Chris.
okay.
Chris is coming to bail me out.
Chris generator because bait isn't perishable as it's salted, it doesn't spoil.
Okay. So, did you guys hear that? The bait is salted.
Okay,
So, if it's not refrigerated, as I understand it, it doesn't impact its ability to be used as bait, but it probably becomes more objectionable from a.
It creates the smell of the ocean.
creates the smell of it.
At low tide.
Perfect. That's it, okay. Problem solved. Okay, thank you.
All right. I think it's pretty complete, so,
Yeah.
I'll make a motion that the application is complete.
and I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so the public hearing will be 2 weeks from today.
Okay. Great. Thank you very much.
And you'll have more
Thank you.
information on awnings and bird-friendly windows, right?
I will, just for you. Yeah.
Super.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you. That was great.
Okay. So, Werner, are we
Oh, yeah, right.
Yep.
doing the,
So we'd like to. Eli's been patiently waiting.
I've seen him over there.
Oh, yeah.
In the
Worried
audience
that he
here,
was
so.
patiently waiting, but
What do they use for bait?
That said, right, and recognizing the time, we did have an idea, we were gonna run past Warner to see if we couldn't be expeditious about it.
Yeah.
I don't know what you think about, because we do have the printed out copies, we could hand out copies. It's only a page and a half. so
Okay.
let people just look
Sure.
through it independently.
I think that's fine.
And then maybe the chair, maybe you would want to just say, okay, anything in this section, anything in this section. and we'll
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
go like that. Okay.
So our thoughts are, just for,
Thank you.
in the interest of time, and because there's only a page and a half, if, folks just want to take this home as homework,
I was suggesting.
He's
that
suggesting
they
to do
just
it in
look
real
at it
time.
do
right
it
now.
do it
Oh,
in real
okay,
time.
or just do it
quickly.
in, yeah, in real time,
And then
yeah.
after everyone puts their pencils down,
Okay, you have to be
we just go through it and.
at a mic when you're speaking.
Yeah.
there.
That works too. Yep. Sorry, I misunderstood you there. Huh?
He was hoping, yeah. That's-
Hope.
Nice try.
That's what I heard.
So Eli said we should all go home.
He's all look good to me.
That's what I heard.
So we're going to start with the top of page 3?
It looks like it.
Yes, that's correct. So starting at the top of page 3 and going to the end, if the members of the planning board want to just take a look, and you can write any notes for yourself. And then in a few minutes here, we'll just review any comments that you might have you'd like to share.
Remind me who CC is.
Conservation Commission.
Ah. Thank you. And they actually collaborate with the City of Biddeford, do they?
We don't.
Today?
Which item are you looking
Look
at?
first-
The first strategy
Number 3,
on the page 3.
page 3. yeah.
Collaborate with the City of Biddeford. That's a pretty broad charter.
Yeah, so I think that's in recognition of the fact that that aquifer crosses the, jurisdictional boundaries.
So what does it have to do with planning board, I guess?
So ultimately, what we anticipate is that there may wind up being, an ordinance proposal that comes forward, that has some type of an aquifer overlay that would have additional performance standards as part of it. And so, really what this is it's, part of it is just giving notice, to the board that, one, that there's a future intention, to look at something like that. Because it crosses the town boundaries, that's part of the reason why it's, it's listed as a, a collaborative effort with the City of Biddeford. More than likely, we'll be looking at what their performance standards are and looking to, make sure that whatever we do is consistent with, with what their current practices are.
So the only thing I'd ask here is that some way the lead on this for the town of Kennebunkport be designated. And I'm not sure that it's either the Conservation Committee or the Planning Board.
Yeah, it would
So
likely
the
be the planning,
responsible
it would be the
party-
planning department that would take the,
Yeah.
that would take the lead of that.
So if you want to add PD to this, then I'd be okay with it.
Yeah.
Yep.
In fact, I'd welcome it, you know. But
And does it need to have Town of Arundel?
That, for that particular
aquifer, no.
aquifer doesn't extend into the town of Arundel.
Okay, okay.
Okay. Good with 7.
Are there aquifers that cover Kennebunk, Arundel, and Kennebunkport?
Well,
The
we're
river?
certainly all part of the same, we're all part of the same water system. But in terms of one that's a specifically mapped area, this is the one that we're referring to. We don't have, there's not a mapped one that crosses boundaries between Arundel, and Kennebunkport.
The whole watershed is important.
No, 100%. This is a groundwater resource, that we're referring to here. If you think of, the dividing line in terms of, between Arundel and Kennebunkport there, we've actually got a river, that divides us. That splits the surface watershed. But this particular location is up in the, Oak Ridge area.
So on item 10, I don't know what green infrastructure means.
So likely what we
Should I
would.
be embarrassed to admit that?
No.
Okay.
No, it's a very general, very broad, and so what the intent here is that at some point in the future, that model regs or amendments would be brought forward to the board, for potential inclusion within the subdivision regs in the LUO.
Like watershed, it would be green shed, basically.
Sounds like the geese leave.
I listened to all this on the video because I wasn't at the last planning board meeting. And a lot of it bothers me because we're taking this piecemeal and so forth. And then this morning on New York Times, I get their little news blurb and so forth, and they were reporting that more people are worried about smog than climate change. In other words, they can't see beyond their noses, basically. I think humans are a failed species anyway, but that's another subject. But even in the comprehensive plan, what bothers me is that we separate human development and human history from geologic history and changes over time. We don't look at it as a whole. And people tend to think of developed areas and houses and lawns and so forth as separate from the rest of Kennebunkport. And then they think of, oh, well, that's the forest and that's the vernal pools over there. But in reality, it's all one. And one of the things I try to do when I give talks or anything is I try to get people to see it's a town in the trees. It's not separate from the rest of the environment. And it's a matter of education and getting people to look at their whole environment and all of the development as part of the forest and the vernal pools and everything. And when we take this apart piecemeal, people start to think of, oh, that's the forest or that's the vernal pool. And they're not thinking, they're thinking their house and their lawn.
So, one thing to keep in mind, and so what we're doing in this process here is that we're approaching the specific boards that strategies have been assigned to. And so I think if you were to look at the comprehensive plan as a whole, a lot of those component pieces that you're talking about are there. The strategies just may be assigned to somebody else in terms of the educational component.
They're not tied together each time you go to them. They're not making people think about the whole. That's what bothers me.
Yeah, and I think that's a fair critique of the kind of comprehensive plan model. And maybe you knew this already, but the way that the chapters are divided is basically the statutorily defined. All comprehensive plans follow these 18 chapter. I think you bring up a valid point though, and it kind of fails to convey the point that you're making, but that is why the strategies are organized the way they are, is it mimics those chapters.
I want people to think their lawn is part of the forest. It affects the forest the same way the forest affects the lawn. I want them to think of their windows are an important part of the environment and the wildlife. The same way, that the birds in the forest are important to everything that goes on around them. And their well-being, the wildlife. And it is a matter of education, but I think an overview that really looks at that really talks about it, is an important thing to have in the comprehensive plan. And I don't see it there. People get very egocentric. They think about themselves.
Well,
They think about,
That's a much larger cultural discussion.
Oh, yes. Certainly.
That I don't think we're going to solve in a comprehensive plan, but I think it's a valid point. And I think that's a very big cultural issue that we have just in general as a country. That we are.
As a world.
Well,
As a world.
I can only
It's just
speak
the
to
way
those that
people
are
are.
around me, but
It's just
yeah,
the
we
way
do tend to
people
be a
are.
bit more self-centered and less outward thinking. But
Yeah.
I don't know that we're going to solve that one tonight.
No. But you see,
That's a good
when you
point.
talk about historical sites, you're talking usually about human, archaeological sites. But there's a lot of geology, even in Kennebunkport, which is basically just moraine from glaciers and so forth. The coastal area, how it's carved out and things like that. There's archaeology there. That's important for people to understand.
Nina,
Why we preserve it.
I'm gonna try to capture your comment here and put this in for the growth planning committee to consider to incorporate into the volume 1 is the shorter condensed summary, and maybe that there'd be an appropriate place in that where it's not as carefully segregated into the 18 chapters that could express that. So
Then you can go to all these specific things and they tie together.
I'd like to see you help craft a paragraph in that volume 1.
That would be a volume in itself. the
No,
way I
no,
feel.
no, that's why I phrased it the way I did, a paragraph.
Yeah.
But if, I don't know if Nina would be willing, but if she were willing to collaborate on producing a paragraph, not a chapter, a paragraph that would, and they would be, interested in incorporating it, then it might be a way to build that bridge.
I'd be glad to help on that.
We've got an awful lot in here that says, going forward over the next 10 years, the planning board will help, and to precipitate that with a collaborative effort in an
Yeah,
upfront chapter might be meaningful.
I think if you felt like drafting some language and sending it, would be happy to share that to the growth planning committee. And
If something you could
And-
point to where it would go, that would help craft it, that would help her
Sure.
craft it, though.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
Yeah, I think I have volume 1. It's the one that's listed out there, the draft.
it's on the website. It's
Correct.
early on the website. It's only
Okay.
15 pages or so. So yeah,
Okay,
but I can send you the link. So
I'll see what I can do.
How about a question on good old number 18? What is the planning board going to do about community-supported fishery? I mean,
it might be easier because the numbers aren't actually sequential. They start at 1 at the
Well,
at the
okay,
beginning of every
on this
subject.
page, it was goal town goals, policies, and strategies dash marine resources. The last strategy there says, support the establishment of a community-supported fishery and informal seafood sales on the waterfront.
Yeah. And that's one that, in discussions where we've gone over the Board of Selectmen piece, that's a strategy that we're suggesting to be removed.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Yep.
That's easy.
That goes under the thing of farm markets and food trucks to me, because, oh, those are nice things to have, but one, you have to have parking,
Right.
space,
Yep.
and a place where it doesn't interfere with the rest
Well,
of
and
the
that,
community.
and that was the exact kind of, conversation that we had as we looked at that strategy and just looked at the resources that we had and that didn't fit.
So maybe if everyone's had a chance to go through it once, we can just go, we'll start with water resources, collect any comments on that, and then we'll just march along.
Water resources.
I'm good with them.
Yeah, it was fine with that.
Great. Then marine resources was next.
Yeah, that's
Well, what,
the gray says town goals, policies, strategies, marine resources. That's the one that I was complaining about, number 18.
what happened to increase community awareness about water resource? Did you just skip those, or?
No, I thought we just said that we were good with that one, with
Oh, I
that
thought-
section.
No,
Tom said protect protect the quality and quantity of water resources. And
Correct.
We were good with that.
That's the goal, and so
And then
within that,
17 is a goal.
so within that,
next
so you
goal.
go to the bottom of 31. So
Oh.
that's all of those.
Oh, I had no idea.
And then the next
I just
piece-
thought each goal stood alone.
Sorry.
Oh.
Yeah, so each topic, so we're in water resources, this one, it looks like there's 3 goals.
I
So
see.
why don't we, so let's
Okay.
go back a second and make sure
Yeah.
everyone has an
That's why I was
opportunity
confused.
to speak on. So,
It turns out I am okay with all of those, but all 3 of those goals, but I thought they were separate.
what page are we on now?
Still, here, there's 3 goals there that we're checking off.
Yep.
Oh,
So we're on
up
the
there.
second goal then.
it's everything in blue there on
The
that
3
page.
blue items, the dark blue items.
Okay, we're only looking at dark blue items now?
No, look at everything under them, but
Okay.
have
so
we
if-
gone over half down the page is all I was confused with.
Yeah,
And
okay.
we're proposing that I'm okay with that break down to 31.
Yeah. Okay, I'm okay with that breakdown to 31.
So I'm just looking at number 27 under goal 17.
Mm-hmm.
Coordinate with the City of Biddeford to adopt standards in the vernal pool complex. So I guess the planning department would actually initiate the meetings?
I was happy as long as planning department was in on that. I'm happy to collaborate.
Yeah,
Right.
that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so,
So the planning department will let us know if they want any input. Is that the idea?
Yeah,
well, they'll be
So planning
the
department's in the lead on,
official
all
point of
this.
contact.
Well, and
Okay.
again, any additional performance standards have to go through a warrant article process to begin with, you know.
Oh,
and-
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
and
we're
so
a
those would-
resource.
Those would
Okay.
be
All
brought
right.
forward to the
That's
board.
All right.
Debate and
Okay,
enlighten.
okay.
okay.
I will also say to folks, just keep in mind, this is a 10-year plan,
Oh, yeah.
you know, so.
And it'll all be underwater by then, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's right. Put some galoshes
My
on.
house won't be.
There you go.
I'm not in
All
the
right.
zone.
All right, so if we're good with everything in blue, we'll move on to marine resources in gray, if anyone has comment on that.
And that
Just
was
one
where
goal there.
18
Yeah.
was the one that
I would add
Felt
on
was kinda-
12 before 18, I would add planning department,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
but for the same reasons we've been
Yeah.
talking
Yeah.
about.
Yep,
Yeah.
that's fine.
Okay, then we can move on to energy, which is in orange. There's one goal.
I was fine with that.
Yeah, 3 S's?
Greenhouse gas emissions, huh?
Eli, was this one where we may have missed pulling out the lead language?
What is lead language?
Oh, you're right. I apologize. This has been updated, so let me find that.
Which one are we doing? Oh, LEED
Number 5,
standards, okay,
Strategy.
right.
LEED
Whatever.
is that greenness standard, right?
Yeah.
The other thing too, I'll just mention here, I mean, it does talk about, design to exceed minimum energy code standards, so, this is where we get into a little bit of a technical, jurisdictional question of where the town of Kennebunkport is a MUBEC community. And so what that means, that when it's a MUBEC community, it's a town that has adopted the Maine Uniform Building Code. And so by agreeing to be part of the Maine, enforcing the Maine Uniform Building Code, it's that you agree to have that as your building code. And so you don't have, with the exception that the state does have an allowance for what they call an energy stretch code that's been specifically authorized, but again, towns have to vote, for that piece. So I just point out that it doesn't fall under the planning board's jurisdiction, and it doesn't necessarily even fall under the code officer's jurisdiction to exceed certain codes, unless it's spelled out specifically in MUBEC.
So does that mean we
What?
can add something in here about adding solar
The-
to town buildings?
That's a different, well, we addressed that in a different, that's not a planning board strategy, but that is a strategy that's been assigned to the Board of Selectmen. Primarily because, one, that's not something that comes before the planning board necessarily, so the addition of solar panels to a roof on a municipal structure wouldn't come to you. But we have that tagged as primarily as a budget item. And so where the Board of Selectmen, town manager, department heads, they all manage their capital improvement plans. That falls under their
What about
purview.
encouraging, in the building codes, encouraging solar?
What happened here? We're talking about number 5. right?
Yeah,
Yes.
and,
Yeah.
and so
I'm
I'll
wondering
actually,
Why there aren't certain other things in there?
Yeah.
Oh. I
so
see.
if I might, so this one was reworded, and I apologize that this is not the updated one, but I'll read you what
Yeah.
the Growth Planning Committee did finally adopt. And so strategy 5 there would be reworded to say, remove barriers and encourage commercial development of a certain scale to include EV charging stations and be designed to exceed minimum energy code standards. So we thought that kind of encompassed, a bit to what you're saying, and also got rid of the being tied to the LEED standards.
Well, that's EV charging stations, but it doesn't include credits or encouragement in the building code for solar to be added to new housing development.
So,
So I thought we were here in the business of saying whether or not the planning board accepted their responsibility with respect to this strategy. And I think you're going to, has the committee got enough strategies?
we have plenty of
Well,
strategies.
I'm just saying, in the interest of time, that may be beyond our ability to deal with at this meeting, that's all. Because it's clear there's other things that we could think of, right off the top.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, it is a tricky line to walk in terms of, where's the line, where do you go, where do you stop,
All of this
what's
stuff,
real,
once you talk, once you open
Sure.
the door, these are interesting and important topics. I'd love to have an encouragement to add solar to my house. Maybe there'd be a tax abatement.
Oh, there already is credit.
I think there's, you can
A
get,
lot of people have different
From
opinions on
Kennebunkport.
encouragement
Oh,
versus
okay,
requirement.
yes, that would be
yeah,
nice.
yeah.
Tax abatement would be lovely.
A lot of folks often kind of use those interchangeably, even though they don't mean the same thing.
Yeah.
We,
So we can,
so I think you can leave planning board on 5 as it was reworded.
as it was
in my
reworded,
opinion.
yeah. Great.
Okay, so now are we on the next batch?
So
Town
then we'll
goals,
go to-
policies,
I love
strategies.
number 15. I think that's definitely a fantastic idea.
Well, I like number 16.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's part of the same, it's really sort of the same thing, but yeah.
Well, 16 says, it goes to this issue of planning board saying, here's some conditions that we
Right.
want to add.
Yep.
And by the way, we're not going to add any staff to the code enforcement office to go check on whether you're doing these
Yeah,
these
and I think,
conditions or
and
not.
so really what this is these are, I would call these kind of like tickler strategies that say, you know, when there's a time, you know, and not that we do it, obviously not do it tonight, but, you know, we should take opportunity to step back and say, all right, so what are we trying to accomplish? And what's the practical reality of whenever you apply conditions to something? Like, how does that work? Yeah, over the long term.
Right, and
Yeah.
we have even a near-term reach that
Right.
says, oh, let's look at what we did over the
Yeah.
past 2 years. We levied these 10 conditions.
Right, and I'd be happy to
How'd we
discuss
make out?
those. And this is really just kind of that tickler that says,
Yeah,
hey,
yeah.
I
let's
like
go,
it.
Yeah, yeah,
let's
we
go
like
back
it.
and
I like it.
and do that kind of in a, you know, in a workshop setting.
Let's do that. So anyway, I like all of these.
These are fine, yeah.
I don't know, 18 seems to be more planning department than planning board.
But is it, the planning department's on there?
Yes, they are,
So-
but so is planning board.
Right.
But we don't do anything about
Yeah.
policies for parking and traffic flow.
Maybe we should have.
Well, we do have some
Input.
traffic flow with the subdivision.
Yeah, I mean, this
Yeah.
is, you know, this is more
Say,
to
hey,
think
we're
about in
thinking
the
of making this
context,
change.
in the context of a,
Planning board will say,
you know, of a site plan
Alright.
review.
But we might have an opinion. I liked the idea of being included.
Okay. I always have an opinion, that's fine.
I'm good with that.
All right, are we happy with the economy section?
Yes.
Move to,
Ecstatic.
the green section there, public facilities and services.
Yep,
Yeah,
There's 2 goals there.
that's fine. It's a tough one.
Okay.
I
And,
saw there were a number of towns, several towns that are getting monies out of this budget surplus, this surplus budget allocation that's coming out of Augusta.
the governor's
We're
office.
not one of them for affordable housing. It's kind of a shame. I think that the work that's been done here by the people that are working on affordable housing is really stellar.
Is
It's
really
really stellar.
23, 24, and 25, I'd make them even more stringent.
We're moving on. All right.
Shade Tree Committee? Do we know anybody on the Shade Tree Committee? Jeez,
Okay, those are all
Those
good.
are all
To
fine.
the bottom of the
Okay.
page.
Then our last
And
one is
and
transportation.
the last gold stuff here.
improved database, which we've been trying to get the money to do.
Database of trees? So you're adding something there?
To make it more accessible and more usable by the town.
So you added in,
It's under 25.
And I'm
so you're gonna
fine-
add
I'm
that,
fine with
and the database.
Page 5 too.
You're
Yeah.
modifying 25 to say,
No.
improve the database, huh?
No,
Yes.
No.
To basically, to improve the database, or basically replace the database, we have to make it more usable by the public and the town.
I'm sorry, you're proposing a wording change to number 25? Is that?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yes, I am.
Yeah, I think that's important. If you're gonna go to all the trouble of labeling those
We
things,
need an
It's-
updated database.
you should document it, yeah.
Yeah.
Question is, who's gonna do it? That's the
So,
thing.
I mean,
Review
we
and
do have,
revise.
we do have a layer on the town's GIS, you know, that's a shade
It's
tree
not-
layer.
It's not usable by, town maintenance, it's not usable by the public very easily. They can't, I want a SQL database so people can go in and say, where are the oak trees? Where's
Yeah.
an oak tree that's got at least a 15-inch diameter on the street and so forth,
Mhm.
things like that. And then I want one that basically you can get a report for the maintenance department of all
Yeah.
the
So
trees
these
that
are-
have been
these are-
identified and need
These are
pruning this
great
year.
ideas, but I
cetera.
think they're all below the level of strategy. They're tactics that
It's a
would support this strategy. I mean, you just named 3 or 4 things. I think they're all good ideas, but you typically wouldn't put them in your 10-year plan. They're the next level of detail to go implement this strategy of reviewing and revising
Yep.
the shade tree program to ensure adequate everything.
Right, That's
This
what you're
is-
doing with the database, improve the database.
I
Yeah.
agree.
Replace the-
You could add another 800 pages
Yeah,
to this
exactly. I'm
document.
just sitting here thinking, okay, what does the next level down look like? That's right.
I sent to Nina a Facebook post that I read about where this town had established a separate email address for each of their special trees,
That would be
so
an
that
email
people
from
could
the-
write,
Oh, nice.
and people did, right?
Right to the
They
tree.
wrote love letters to the
Nice.
trees, and
We just,
tourists would write letters of appreciation to the trees, and then we could collect those in the database.
we just
I think
got
those
a
are great
letter- we
ideas,
just
but they're
got a
below the
letter
level
from
of
a
strategy.
homeowner. We just got a letter from a homeowner that basically gave us kudos for protecting the elm tree on our property.
Do you think we should be putting those letters in the database?
Can we finish the last two strategies?
Can we finish the last two?
All right, so
That's right.
Exactly.
We're going on,
What else, what?
now we're on
the last
not go
section
there.
here,
Yep.
under
Scenic view and scenic
transportation.
resources.
transportation. Okay, we're
Nope,
moving on to,
said-
we're moving on to transportation.
Transportation.
I am
Yep.
good with both of those.
Well, my only problem is that bicycles are not safe on the bulk of the roads in Kennebunkport.
That's true.
We'll fix the roads.
Well, yeah, wider, no problem,
Walls
other
taking
than
private
shade trees is the only
Plastic.
problem.
All right, so we're good with the transportation ones then?
Yes.
Great.
Yes,
Great.
All
Thank you.
right.
Yeah.
I would
So-
move that this comp plan strategy review is complete.
is it complete?
Well,
I don't think it's,
I think that we're gonna come back to you one more time.
Okay.
But I think we've got a groove going now, so.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
Get a group.
Yeah, thank
all
you.
right, then I will take a motion.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second,
All in favor?
aye.
Aye. Okay,
Thank you.
we're done. Thank you.
Oh,